Good evening, everybody. So today we are starting with yesterday we have polity society discussions. Today we'll continue with ethics, integrity and aptitude. Today we'll be focusing on section A part only. And tomorrow 5 o'clock we'll have the continuation of discussion on the case studies part. Okay. So before starting the course, let me start with 3 courses that is being launched regarding the ethics course. Yeah, so you have access to this course. You can get all the details from the website. The basic idea of launching 3 different courses is every student has his own XYZ needs. Everyone is not on the same plane. Somebody who has written mains, he has totally different kind of requirements during the next 3 months. Mostly everyone is associated with some kind of mains preparation. Either you will be doing optionals or you will be associated with some kind of answer writing programs. In ethics, one thing you should focus on those subjects which you completely leave for prelims. From January, every one of you might be studying only prelims part, and ethics you will be completely not touching at all for the next 5 months. So try to consolidate whatever knowledge you have, try to write at least few tests, try to have a specific plan what you are going to do for ethics or any other subject. Per se, those subjects like world history, those subjects like essay, those subjects like IR or security, these subjects you cannot touch during the prelims preparation mode. So consolidate the preparation what you have done for the ethics, these subjects, and before the December. That should be your overall plan. And what you should do, that totally based on what level of preparation you are. Are you a student who already done with the main syllabus? Are you a student who have already written mains and not able to score good in ethics? Or what is your kind of requirement? Depending on that, you can look at these courses and only join if these courses meet your requirement. There is no point in joining a number of courses or joining X number of videos. At the end of the day, if you should understand where you stand, and if this meets your requirement, then go and join, then utilize the available resources. First course is Ethics Foundation course. This will be somewhere around a 40-hour lecture series which completely discusses ethics from the scratch, how to develop arguments, how to learn examples. All these elements will be discussed in this course very in detailed manner. Then the next major program, this we have run successfully for mains 2023 also, that is the ethics marks improvement program. Mark improvement program basically contains a 20-hour recorded video sessions. These sessions will be kind of a main focus is I assume that you already read some books on ethics, you already done some courses on ethics, you are fairly aware of the syllabus. What you need is some kind of guidance for answer writing. You need to step up your answer writing skills. We have seen in this year paper, we are going to see in this discussion video also how you are going to approach different questions, how you are going to approach different parts of the syllabus, how you can get different skills for brainstorming. All these elements will be the main focus of this ethics marks improvement program. It will be associated with an offline workshop for 2 weeks workshop starting from 7th of October. Similarly, we also have the mains test series starting from 7th of October itself. This contains 5 tests with validity till mains 2024. These are all the basics of the courses. Now let's go into major aspect of today's discussion. So in whole, what we are going to do, we are going to discuss each and every question that is being asked in 2023 paper. I hope most of you might have already gone through the paper. You have seen the questions, you have already judged what is the level of questions, what is the expectation, what is the XYZ thing. How you see the paper? Give me some ideas. How was the paper? Have you gone through it once at least? How was it? You was not able to complete. You tried writing it in 3 hours. Okay. Okay, you wrote the mains. Okay. So how many questions you left? What is the status? 3 questions in section A or case studies? 2 in section A and 1 case study. This is your first mains. Okay. So leaving this paper, it was comparatively, if you look at the last 2 years paper, it was much on a easier side. Like even if you speak from the time management perspective, in 2022, what we have seen is quite lengthy, complex case studies. Even in 2022, we have seen in the section A also, so many questions where you have to interpret what exactly is the question. There are statements having 2-3 dimensions. You have to really understand the question and then go for answering. It also takes some time. But this year, if you look at the most of the section A questions, which we are going to discuss also, mostly straightforward question. Now, if you prepare the syllabus, you should have some kind of content for most of the question. Only very few questions like Guru Nanak, maybe you haven't readily prepared for ethics, or maybe the social capital question, you might have heard it in the economy or GS3, but ethics you are not expecting social capital question. So one or two bouncer question, but that also you can write something about social capital, is not completely unaware. Guru Nanak also you might have seen in the art and culture, history, Sikhism, you can associate with 2-3 principles and write the answer. So otherwise the paper was on easier side. From student perspective, what you can take away from this? There is no point in becoming an advantage as such in having an easy paper or a tough paper. In 2022, if we speak, those who complete the paper, they have immense advantage, because completing itself was a challenge for most of the people. Most of the people come out with leaving many questions. So that in that paper, even if you are not writing introduction in some question, even if you are not writing conclusion in question, but fairly what is asked you are writing, and fairly completing the paper itself gives you some sort of advantage. We have seen many toppers talks also. Like I have seen one topper talk, she told that all section A, she took so much of time that she cannot able to complete the section B if she applied her normal writing style. So what she did is she completely left the intro and conclusion in whole case studies. This is something we don't preach or we don't expect student to copycat. But the idea is that paper was so lengthy that instead of leaving one question completely, leaving intro conclusion for some question was okay in that paper. Now we come to 2023, the dynamics is changing. Here, small case studies you might have seen. Most of the case study has 1 or 2 questions, or that question also is ethical issues and what options you. Very direct, straightforward questions. In section A also, most questions are direct from the syllabus, like emotional intelligence versus cognitive skills. That is what you study when you study emotional intelligence. Probity in governance. What else you study about probity? So many questions are directly picked from the syllabus. So that gives this paper's analysis or students' expectation or requirement little bit different. Here you have to focus little more on quality. Simply completing the paper don't give you that much of an advantage. Here you need to focus on quality. You need to focus on not leaving any part of the paper. Whether it is introduction, whether it is conclusion, whether it is any other part of the answer, you need to focus on it. You should make sure that you are not completely leaving any of the sections. Okay. So on that note, what to expect in this class is a general analysis of 2023 GS4 paper. Then what strategies, what takeaways we can look forward to 2024 attempt. That these two things we are going to look forward in this class. Let's start with the first question. So let's go through the question once. What do you understand by moral integrity and professional efficiency in the context of corporate governance? Illustrate with suitable examples. So what are you going to do with this question? Give me. Give me some ideas. How you attempted this question? Defined in the introduction itself, how many parts or what are different parts of the question? Let's try to understand what is expectation. First and foremost, things of answer writing, that is understanding the demand of the question correctly. Like if you want one takeaway from you go from this class, that should be in ethics at least all question 10 markers, you have 2 pages to fill. Exactly 2 pages. By reading the question, the first decision you have to take is how much parts this question is and how much space I am going to allocate to each of these questions. Now why I am not using words? If I use words, then it becomes very subjective. It is different for everyone. Somebody who is writing small handwriting, he might in small space he might include more number of words. So it becomes very subjective. But space, that is highly democratic for everyone. 2 pages, whatever even Shashi Tharoor is writing, he also will get only 2 pages. you also get only 2 pages. So how you are going to utilize this space? What exactly is the demand of this question? Tell me, what all different parts can this question have? ठीक है, ठीक है. So in the context of corporate governance, 2 terms are being asked, and you have not asked to do any comparative analysis. You are not asked to do any application of these 2 terms. What you want to do is you have to define what is moral integrity. You have to define what is professional efficiency in the context of corporate governance. This meaning you have to bring in your answer. Then add some examples, you are done with it. Nothing beyond that you are required to write. So if I am preparing this answer, 2-3 line I write for introduction. Then there will be, it is better if you can make a box format, otherwise you can give 2 heading. One heading for moral integrity, one heading for professional efficiency. Then definition, whatever 4-5 points I need to generate here, 4-5 points I need to generate here. This will go up to here. At least 4-5 points here, 5 points here. At least in this 5 points, 2 points I should have very decent examples. 3.4 points you can add examples, you are good enough. But at least minimum I expect 2 points you have to give some kind of right examples, appropriate example that reflects the meaning of XYZ, what is asked. All points I try to define these terms only. I won't go beyond that. I am not going to do any analysis here. Then I write a conclusion in 3 lines and finish the paper. Clear? इसका आगे कुछ नहीं करना है. Now how to generate these 5 points? Or what exactly to keep in mind in generating these points? These are the areas we are going to see ahead. So you can give some introduction on this regard. Yeah, in introduction itself I am going with the different types of introduction you can give. It's not like this is the only fair type of introduction. You can start with even defining the 2 terms. More or less your whole answer should be directed towards defining moral integrity and professional efficiency. In introduction I use, in corporate governance, moral integrity signifies adherence to ethical standards. Use as simple language as possible. I am not looking at any English language efficiency or better English. It's all, keep that all away. If you are, naturally your English is very good, use whatever English you know. Otherwise keep it as simple as possible. Moral integrity means what? Whatever decision you are taking, you will keep adherence to ethical standards. In corporate governance means whatever decision making is happening in the corporate governance, it will be based on ethical principles. Now professional efficiency means whatever is the professional objectives. So every company has professional objective. If you are running a coaching institute, having more students is professional objective. If you are running some production manufacturing unit, having higher margin, higher profit, making more productions, improving the productivity of the workers, all these are your professional requirements. Now doing that professional requirements, like achieving the professional goals in a competent manner. Competent manner means with less resources, with better environment friendly strategies, better risk management, everything that comes under professional efficiency. So ethical, moral integrity, adherence to ethical standards like honesty and accountability. Professional efficiency indicates competence in whatever XYZ role the company is executing. Going ahead, you can give another type of introduction. You can think on every question of ethics, you can give some or other relation to what exactly is the current affairs relevance of the topic. Like you have seen the Hindenburg accusation against Adani Group, and a lot of XYZ news was going on around that. So whatever, even if it is true or wrong, you don't need to take a stance against or pro Adani Group. What you can mention is there has been collapse in corporate governance, moral integrity, accusations against XYZ Group. That give context to the 2 terms what we are saying. Even both these terms are quite relevant for Adani Group. If you look closely, they are making huge profit, they are expanding year after the year. So professional efficiency, they are keeping it up. But somewhere the accusation, if the accusation is true, it is question of moral integrity. Are they crony capitalist, or are they some other accounting fraud, or these are the major accusations. Stock market manipulation, accounting fraud and environmental violations. Are they doing it or not doing it? That becomes a controversy. Okay, So you can give a hint to this also, the current affair context also this way also you can start your answer. Going ahead, now what is next part is, I need to understand, give more clarity to what these two terms are in the context of corporate governance. Here we took a very generalistic definition of this. Now we are going into a little bit more depth. How you can generate points? You have any suggestions? How you can generate points, more points in this answer? This is where you require some kind of thought process. You require some kind of frameworks. In our whole workshop classes before 2023 mains, we have developed around 12 different frameworks. And these frameworks more or less covers every part of the syllabus. Now what I always try to teach you is not something content or examples or XYZ. Thing is, you have an approach to the question, approach to the syllabus part, then generating ethical arguments become easy. In this question, what we follow is, what exactly is the corporate governance? Corporate governance, who are all the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders in corporate governance? It can be the owners or shareholders per se, you can say. It can be the board of directors. Recently, there are cases going on, women should be in the board of directors, X number of percent should be women, 1 in 3 should be women. All these cases you might have read in the newspaper recently. Employees of the company are also stakeholders of corporate governance. Customers are the biggest stakeholder. Government or regulatory bodies, biggest stakeholder. Now, if some pollution case studies, pollution related case studies, the affected community is the local community. Now we have, it is not required you should follow this approach or this same number of people or anyone. You can think of anybody who is XYZ related to corporate governance. Corporate governance decision making, it affects some person, you can include him. Now think what moral integrity and what professional efficiency for each of these stakeholders. Then your work is done. It's quite easy. Anyone now, this answer can be, anyone can write the answer and generate examples. What is moral integrity for shareholders? Dividend size hai do, more financial disclosures, papers should be right. What is professional efficiency? Higher dividend to higher margin of profit though. Share price should not be manipulated. All this comes under professional efficiency. For board of directors, strategies, ethical strategies adopt karo, ethical policy making adopt karo, employee welfare policies adopt karo. That all comes under moral integrity. Professional efficiency hai to you have long term planning. If you are risk management sahi se karo, so that investors are not losing the money. Similarly, employees, for employees, what is moral integrity? Having, give me one example. Following code of ethics, code of conduct, or whatever is XYZ is the policies of the company, adhering to that policy. Now what can be professional efficiency? Getting higher profit, getting higher bonuses, getting rewards for hard work or extra work or whatever you can say. That all comes under professional efficiency. For customers, moral integrity means there is no fake advertisement, there is no fake propaganda. There are so many fairness creams. In 14 days your skin color become this to that. Everything is fake advertisement itself. Nobody is going to change your skin color as such in 10 days or 14 days. So that should not happen. Customers should get honest advertisement, honest information about the consequences of whatever the product they are subjected to. Professional efficiency means they should get it for minimum price. They should get it as per their demand. COVID vaccine, what is professional efficiency for COVID vaccine? You should get availability of the vaccine should be there so that you can go and take the vaccine at required quantity, at required price, at required government hospitals, rural, different areas, it should be made available. Government regulations, what will be moral integrity? You adhere with policies, adhere with rules and regulations. You submit your, what you can say, income tax returns, other returns on time. You don't go into this, what type of companies? Pseudo companies, shell companies. You don't make shell companies and do this base erosion, profit shifting. Don't indulge in that kind of activities. This all comes under moral integrity of Under you can think on these basis, regulatory bodies. Why professional efficiency means you should report on time, you should report all your XYZ deliverables, you should adhere to XYZ terms, conditions, rules, regulations, all these policies in time. 1/3 should be women directors means actual 1/3 should be women directors. Similarly, local communities, if there is an environmental impact, it should be communicated in time. Or if company is looking at long-term strategies, then it should adopt environmental efficient policies. All this you can think on these two headings, and you can generate 5 points, and you can give few examples. IL&F was a famous case of corporate governance, misgovernance, you can say, the corruption case. Similarly, the Kotak Bank, HDFC Bank, they have higher standards of ethical policy making, higher standards of professional efficiency, at least Indian banking sector, many of private banks especially. You can connect with some, if you are not having very specific examples. Think on what are some of the famous corporate scandals. Nirav Modi case, that is anyway it is a scandal. What Mallya? Vijay Mallya case. Satyam scandal you can think of. If you are thinking on outside India, Dieselgate scandal on this emission for Volkswagen. Volkswagen has manipulated the emissions data. They have told that their vehicle was emitting very less carbon dioxide. It was in like decades back. But then it has been caught by the regulatory bodies. Then it lead to like brand name again got destroyed. Whole the history of brand get destroyed by this bigger scandal. So think on some of the famous scandal you can remember, you can cite some of the examples. Think on some of the best practices. Tata Group, they are one of the strongest ethical policies in India. Give examples. Transparent marketing, some examples they do. Law compliance, social responsibility. Okay, every point you don't know examples, it's perfectly fine. But 2-3 points you can generate examples. 2-3 examples you have heard, you can bring into this answer. If you look at this MIB booklet that has been launched before, n number of examples you can see, like Satyam scandal, Nirav Modi fraud, HDFC Bank has been fined by RBI. That recent case was being cited here. Adani Group accusations, Infosys, there has been whistleblower issues going on in the Infosys. There has been Iran scandal, that is the Volkswagen scandal. Facebook, there has been this, what was its name? Cambridge Analytica scandal accusation against Facebook that it is manipulating data and election result they are trying to impact through manipulating data. Some of the examples you can think, remember, can put in the answer, you can fairly answer this question well. In conclusion, if you are taking a stance, which one is more important, you're not required to write this conclusion itself, but you can go with your own also. But idea is, if you look at what is important, both are important. It is not like you cannot compromise this and go with professional efficiency. On the other hand, you cannot compromise professional efficiency and go with moral integrity also. Both integrity and professional efficiency ensures business offer lasting value to all stakeholders. Okay. Major takeaway is how I generated the point, how I approach the answer. Now let's discuss the second question. Yeah, go through this question once. International aid is an accepted form of helping resource-challenged nations. You have a statement here. Comment on ethics in contemporary international aid. Support your answer with suitable examples. So brainstorm for a while how you are going to approach this answer. Batao. Okay. Tell me the basic things. What will be different parts of this answer? How you are going to fill your 2-page criteria? Define, you will write 2-3 line introduction defining international aid, giving some example of international aid. You can start with different types of introductions. ठीक है, और क्या करेगा? Directly you are going into negatives. Here the question, what kind of question it is? You have a statement. International aid is accepted form of helping resource challenged nations. After that statement, you have a set of questions. Comment on ethics in contemporary international aid. So first address the statement. Make your introduction. In this kind of question, you can even make your introduction up to half of the first page. Lengthy introduction is possible in this question. Why a lengthy introduction is possible? Because through the introduction, what we are trying to achieve, we are substantiating the statement. You can give 2-3 examples. You can make 3-4 points, at least 2-3 points based on this statement, importance of international aid for resource challenged nations. You can give some examples of India's Vaccine Maitri program, or India's aid to Sri Lanka, or other World Bank aid to, you told about World Bank multilateral organizations, World Bank initiatives during the pandemic, or any other contemporary examples that is coming into your mind, you can put it here to show the you can use quote also, but idea is it should be relevant to the, you should make it relevant to the XYZ, like poverty anywhere is a threat to humanity elsewhere. So you get no issues with using or not using the quote. Make it relevant to international aid, that is the whole idea. Second part, what you will bring? Now here comment on ethics in contemporary international aid is the question. Now we are trying to address this question. Now if you think of international aid, it is not something like you can completely go with one side. International aid has its positive aspects, has its negative aspects. So it's better you bring both your aspects instead of bringing your own perspective. What can be ethical arguments in support of international aid? Minimum 3 to 4 points. We made here 2 points here, 3 to 4 points here. Second part will be ethical arguments against international aid, 3 to 4 points, at least 1 or 2 examples in each section. Then a 3-line conclusion, 1 point here, your answer will be done. Okay, so this will be our fairly approach to this question. Let's move ahead. So introduction, international aid offers resources, expertise, enhancing living standards, resilience in needy nations. Like different functions of international aid, I have shortlisted. Then I have given some of the recent examples. Why I am writing it, normally I always prefer minimum introduction, just 1 line, 2 line introductions. But why we are extending it here? Because it is substantiating the statement. 2-3 examples in support, positive examples of international aid you can give. Then you can think on some of the second, like major part of this question also. In last question, we think from the perspective of stakeholders and we got the answer. Here you can think on basic questions like who is providing the international aid, what is the purpose of providing the international aid, how is international aid is being provided, to whom it is being provided, what are the consequences, impacts of this aid. You can also think on these aspects. Who is providing aid means it can be multilateral groups, it can be countries, it even can be private individuals or private organization or groups. One famous example, WEF, or WEF more or less multilateral organization. Private examples means like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, different charity organizations you can bring under this. Countries though means India or US, helping US aid to Pakistan, all these examples you can come into your mind. So these 1 or 2 examples from all these dimensions, you will get your some of the points. Think on these lines. Purpose, some of the aid can be positive. If it is truly based on charity basis, humanitarian basis, it is truly based on bringing in education, healthcare to the XYZ region. That purpose, then it is ethical. Deontological perspective you can bring in. If intention is right, then it is ethical thing to do. But some aids are not truly based on humanitarian purposes. They have underlying strategic aims and objectives. For example, Greenpeace incident, They have been getting funding from China and other adversaries against India, and they are making environmental activism activities, funding environmental activism in India. Now, funding environmental activism by Chinese groups, what is their purpose? Their purpose is not protecting environment. Their purpose is only one thing, that is blocking, delaying the development projects, delaying the infrastructure. Kudankulam project was one of the classic example of this. Now, how this Kudankulam nuclear power plant, I think the protest is still going on, but the plant started functioning. Now, how the aid is being given? What can be the positive aspects? Some aid comes with institutionalization. They brings local SFGs, microfinancing groups. So these, if you bring these kind of aids to the country, that brings a system, makes a system so that it can propel, it can grow further. That's very ethical thing to do, to have. On the other hand, what can be negative? If you are giving aid to a corruption ridden country, where there is no system so that equitable distribution happens, you give the international aid, the politicians or anybody who has the power, he will capture the major chunk of the aid. Who it is intended to get, it will not reach that person. Corruption can also become, what is famous in India? NGOs. We have so much case of NGOs, fund transfer issues, fund transfer frauds. They are no opaque system. You might have read in GS3 and all. So this also you can cite to bring you into your answer. Similarly, to whom? Like how you decide who is deserving of the charity. Many of the time it is done on arbitrary basis. Who have the power, who get that. Who have the power to show that there is poverty in my country, get that aid. It's not that they are the most needy persons. So there is no equitable regulatory system to ensure that the most needy or some kind of fairness is there in the distribution of the aid. Now, impacts. What is the major problem with a development that is guided by aid? Even we use this something like Gandhi's talisman also. What is one of the major idea of Gandhi's talisman? Like there are n set of ideas. One major idea is when you have to take a decision, remember who most needy person, something like that. Beyond that, on impacts, what you can think of? Batao? It can make some kind of dependency. The aid you provide, then it is run by aid. You are not doing any work, you are getting some kind of funding from elsewhere. You are becoming dependent on this funding. Now you are getting a resources you don't worked. You are getting a money that you haven't worked for that. Now that creates certain kind of dependency. Whenever the funding stops, then the whole the ecosystem breaks down. It is not converting into actual capabilities of the people. You are giving 100 rupees today, that is being spent on food or whatever XYZ, that is being no capital investment, whether it is social capital, whether it is infrastructure development, long-term capital development is not happening. Then the aid is nothing but creeping some kind of dependency, international dependency you can speak about. So these are the dimensions you should explore, and fairly it is enough to generate 5 points in pro and 5 points in cons of international aid. So here you can see the answers. So these all model answers you can download from the Telegram group of our website. It is all provided in the website. So I hope you got the crux of it. Almost all the things we have discussed so far is written here. I'm not going through each one of it. Okay. Let's move further. So MIB references ethical issues in international funding. Like this is also a direct topic picked from the syllabus. If you have done a basic study for ethical issues in international relations and funding, you could have at least remembered some examples. Even there is criticism against World Bank. Even during the pandemic time, what we have seen is developed countries are lobbying to get maximum vaccines to their countries. There is no humanitarian concern. That all becomes secondary when the need was at the urgency. So all these were US based, or you can say the Western group of organizations has been under criticism. Same goes with US foreign aid to Pakistan, European Union aid of handling of refugee crisis by the European Union. All these, some of the examples you can pinpoint from this and fairly address the demand of this question. Conclusion, the ethical dimension, you cannot, it's very hard to completely negate either of the side. There is positive elements of international aid. For example, Sri Lanka, India given aid to Sri Lanka. That has been highly appreciated. Like it helped the country, get the country to move out of the crisis. Now they may repay in the future also. They have the capacity, they have proven there if political system is being settled, Sri Lanka has the capacity to invest in human development. So when it moves on, it may repay also. So that kind of help is something that is helpful to the country. On the other hand, help like China is offering to Pakistan. What China is doing, debt trap or buying the resources or pushing Pakistan into nationwide lockdowns or this kind of power shedding. Nationwide, throughout the nation, the power is being cut off. Why it is being cut off? Because the power companies are run by Chinese companies and Pakistan is not able to pay these companies. They have no consideration, just cut off the power if no money. So these kind of, so in conclusion, you have to like mention both these has its own credits and demerits. The ethical dimension of international aid navigates tension between humanitarian assistance and challenges like corruption and political agendas behind that. Let's move to the third question. So I want you to go through the question and brainstorm on what can be the different dimensions in this question. Then we will continue the answer. Okay. Why you are brainstorming in the rough page? Should have directly written. 10 markers you don't need to, it's not like essay, you brainstorm then write, you don't have that much of time also. Only 7 minutes you are getting for one answer, right? Better not to indulge in these kind of practices. So here also a very similar question. We have a statement, then after that a question is being asked. Corruption is the manifestation of the failure of the core values in the society. In your opinion, what measures can be adopted to uplift the core values in the society? So tell me what is the demand of this question? One thing you have to keep in mind is this question is not too much about corruption. What this question is about? This question is majorly about core values. So bring that aspect into your answer. You can at least understand that which part of the syllabus this question is coming. You have corruption issues in the syllabus at the later part, and at the early part, the human ethics and human relations, the first part, there is values, role of teachers, role of educational institutions, role of society, role of parents, all these values, formation, all these elements you study in the first part. So this question is more from the first part rather than a question from the second part. Your answer should always focus on core values. This much you understand, your work is done. You can fairly answer this question. In introduction, what you can do? Substantiate the statement, same as we done for the last question. Substantiate the statement. Prove that corruption is a fact of degrading values, or corruption is a manifestation of failure of core values. Some of 2-3 values you take, or some of 2-3 examples you give. Take half of the page, first page, substantiate the statement. Corruption thrives when society's ethical foundation is fragile, evidenced by political corruption, officials, bureaucracy, corruption, transparency, lack of transparency, institutional systematic issues, disrespect to public assets, citizens devalued ethics. Give 1-2 examples, at least 3 points, your work is done. You substantiated the statement. Now you have to answer the major part of the question, that is, in your opinion, what measures can be adopted to uplift these core values? Here what you should think, like in first question we have done stakeholder analysis. Second question we have thought from the perspective of asking basic questions. Here what you can think? What are the core values? What core values, failure of what values will result in corruption? Think on that perspective. What can be the values? It is not like you need to rocket science, you need to learn 10 books. What can be, give me 5 values. Integrity. Think from societal, like people's perspective. If people are dishonest, there will be corruption. Dishonesty is a value. If what can people can other values people can have? Trust, social contract. On these ideas you can think. Trust in the society is not there, there will be corruption. Greediness, if greediness is there, there will be crony capitalism, all this corruption. Now think from the official perspective or government perspective or bureaucrats perspective. What values if not there, there will be corruption. Transparency is not there. Accountability, integrity, all these values if not there. Empathy, compassion, you can connect with all these values. If these values are not there, there will be exhibition of corruption. Now what is the next thing you have to do? These are the core values. How to improve these values? How to improve honesty in the society? How to improve accountability among civil servants or politicians or any other stakeholder you are thinking of? 5, 6, 7 elements you can think of. At least 2 points you can generate how to improve honesty in society. Give me 2 points. Value education provide karo. Appreciate karo honesty. If somebody is paying, we have some schemes like this. If somebody is paying highest amount of taxes in a region, some roads will be named after him. He will be given some rewards by the government. So these kind of giving an appreciation for honest tax paying. Honesty को appreciate करो society में, policies में at every level. Educational system revamp करो, like even National Education Policy 2020 have different provisions of moral education. So bring these elements into your XYZ answer writing. Getting how you can approach this question. Have you done similarly? Okay, good. So these are the values you can think of: honesty, integrity, transparency, accountability, justice, rule of law, social contract. N number of values you can think. This is not a comprehensive list. Then for every values I am trying to generate at least 2 points. I will get more than 10-15 points very easily. For honesty, moral education, we have told inspiring role models like APJ Abdul Kalam or any other role models, Vishwesvaraya you can think of. Integrity, code of conduct, enforce code of conduct at all levels, enforce whistleblower protection acts, transparency, open government policies like Pragati portal, freedom of information like RTI, strengthening of RTI Act, accountability, ombudsman policies, independent oversight mechanism, justice, independent judiciary, like n number of points you can generate. But the crux of idea how to generate these points you are understanding. Conclusion: a strong ethical backbone of core values lead to societal prosperity, emphasizing clarity, accountability, and unwavering integrity. Thing is, these upholding the values, you can only address the crux of corruption. Even when you study corruption, there are 2 ways to study of the corruption in the syllabus. When you study, there are 2 ways to tackle corruption. One is like making stringent laws, give more punishment, make the system more open, make system more efficient, so scope of the corruption is being reduced. Second is you address the core issue, that is value system ko change karo. Now nobody will speak about how to change the value system because that is not something that can be done in 1 day or 5-year term of a government. It requires consistent efforts over the decades. Then only you can address the corruption as systematic issue of corruption. So this aspect should highlight in your answer writing also in this question. Okay, let's go ahead. Go through the next question, then we will start the discussion. देखा बताओ क्या समझ में आया? Differentiate between quite a very interesting question. Even these are not the terms which you study and go study the definitions and go for the exam. Integrity, all these accountability, all these standard definitions you have might have रट के गया होगा, इसमें तो थोड़ा confusing लगे. ठीक है, in the context of work environment, differentiate between coercion and undue influence with suitable examples. Similar to first question, what you have to do? What is coercion? What is undue influence? You have to apply it in the context of work environment. What we done in the first question? It was corporate governance. So we looked at what are the elements of corporate governance, then we generated the points. Here what you have to do, look at what are the elements of work environment. Then for different work environment, what can be coercion in that situation? What can be undue influence in that situation? You are done with your answer. Getting? So introduction, we can start with definition. Coercion means using threat or force. That is the major area of difference. Active use of threat or force to make someone act against their will, whereas undue influence is subtle manipulation of someone's decision by exploiting a position of power or trust. A higher authority or a person with higher powers, he is subtly manipulating your decision making, but at the end of the day you are making the decisions. You are not actively being forced. That comes under undue influence. And if direct force is being used, direct authority is being used, that comes under coercion. Introduction, 3-line introduction, we defined whatever is the two terms. Now what we are going to do in the context of work environment, how this thing reflects, that we are going to see. Same approach what we have done for the first question. What are the different elements? Physical environment. What can be coercion in physical environment? Recently a video came out, like some office has been locked up. Employees were not allowed to go to outside for chai or whatever they have to go outside. They were not allowed to. The office has been locked up. What is that? Some kind of a coercion in physical environment. If you don't do the work, don't go home. You are locking up the employees. Similarly, what can be social undue influence in physical environment? Think from this perspective, like some office has poor conditions. Recently there has been a fire in Mukherjee Nagar. In some institute, some students has been injured, or the video has been circulated. So what exactly is happening? It is not that there is unregulated construction, there is non-safety mechanisms has been not followed. But thing is, if any student raise concern about this, he may be penalized. If any employee raise concern against this, his promotion may be blocked. His XYZ bonus, salaries, whatever it is, that may be blocked. If he raise his voice against some kind of the undue practices, it can be safety conditions, it can be unhygiene food, unhygiene working conditions, it can be any XYZ terms and conditions, dignity of the individual is being not protected. If you raise your concern, you have not raising your concern because you fear that management will turn against you. So that is some kind of a physical form environment, some kind of a undue influence. Similarly, in organizational culture, in social environment, in job characteristics, in compensation, in deciding compensation and rewards, any other aspect you can think also. Idea is break down work environment into 5-6 parts. For every part, what exactly is coercion? Threatening job loss for not following XYZ ritual. If you wear hijab, or if you attend some religious XYZ functions, then you will be expelled from the organization. Recently there has been a case in Kerala also. One woman editorial panel journalist has been expelled from a news channel because she attended some political party's XYZ meeting. So these kind of influence, these are directly your threatened job loss is being threatened, job security or job is being threatened. So that is comes under coercion. Similarly, threatening isolation for not joining social events. Some kind of, you can think of coercion as bullying for not joining social functions, bullying within the colleagues, bullying within the organization, not among the higher authorities, even within the group also. Threatening job for not taking extra tasks. Many work culture in India, you see this kind of conduct, like 5 baje you have to leave the office, at 4:45 you will be given so much of work, and you have prompt reply, prompt date is also there. If you don't do, then it is a negative mark on it. Similarly, withholding bonuses without overtime. All these are like withholding your money, withholding your XYZ job security. All this comes under direct coercion. In kind of undue influence, suggesting promotions linked to tolerating poor office conditions, reminding an employee of norms of working late. Like working late has become kind of a normalization of working late, especially in the IT industries. Those who work on time, 8 hours is the working hours, those who work 8 hours are being penalized, because that is they're considered to be a less working people, not hardworking people. Need to stay late in order to get ahead culture. Highlighting everyone's attendance after hours. Like you can only punch out after 6 o'clock, even though your working hours is still 5 o'clock. That kind of habit. Suggesting extra tasks lead to success. Implied rewards for not claiming overtime. All these are different aspects of undue influence. The crux of this whole question is divide based on work environment, 5-6 dimensions. Then you try to define undue influence and coercion in each of these situations. In conclusion, leveraging a clear understanding of coercion and undue influence helps creating a more transparent, equitable, empowering work environment. What is how you respond to coercion and undue influence? Or how if you want to check coercion and undue influence, which one is easy to check? Stop. Coercion means there is direct use of force. That is against legal aspect, against rules and regulations. This, if you happened, you can even register complaint. If it is at a higher level, you can consult into labor codes, you can consult into other XYZ grievance redressal mechanisms within the organization, outside the organization. There are systemic supports available to you. But on the other hand, if undue influence happening, it's very difficult to track, very difficult to prove, very difficult to like mismanage, very high scope of mismanaging undue influence. So this is become quite difficult. If this has to be tackled, then only solution is revamping the work environment. Or work culture of the organization, value system of the organization. On these aspects you have to work. On organizational structure you have to redefine. On promotion models, payment models, everything, every aspect you have to work on. Then only there will be a change in our possibility of checking undue influence. Whereas coercion you can work on reporting, strengthen karo, redressal, grievance redressal mechanism strengthen karo. You can address by strengthening the external mechanisms also. Let's go ahead. Let's go to the third question. Go through the question, make a mental framework, then we'll start the discussion. Namaste Lalit. If anyone watching online, you want to ask something, you can comment into live chat. Yeah. Now let's move to quotation based question. Every year minimum you are getting 3 quotation based questions. and sometimes 6 also you get if some pattern change in trending is happening. 30 marks up to 60 marks maximum. How you should approach this? What is your XYZ thought process or approach to quotation based questions? Tell me some ideas. बताओ. Simplify what? Quote. Okay. See, we have what we have done for MIP in 2023 mains. We developed some kind of what you need in a quotation base. Sometimes quotations can be tough. Sometimes quotation can be little bit of complex, lengthy quotations, 2-3 dimensions are coming out of it. You have to have some kind of approach, otherwise there is high chance you will mess up your answer. Your answer should have a proper structure. In all other question, in this question, there is exactly something that is asked. So if you are paying attention, if you are doing some kind of practice after test series, after writing GS 1, 2, 3, you are coming here, you are fairly aware some question there is being asked, then that you have to write. Here what is asked? What is the difference between these two terms? So these two terms you have to write. But in quotations it becomes little bit tricky because exactly you are not getting a question. So how you can interpret this, how you can tackle this? What only thing is, I can teach you a number of strategies. Only thing you have to keep in mind is you should have some kind of approach. If you are not having no approach, then there is high chance you will mess up your 2-page answers. Some approach you develop karo. One thing I regularly say is for introduction, again same story we had to fill. You have 2 pages, and one interesting thing, even if you are writing, if you look at the PYQs on the quotation based question, there has been changes in what is written above. Many a time students don't read what is written above the quotation. They jump into quotation. I hope you also not given attention to what is written above. We have a tendency to jump into what exactly is quotation is asked. But there are differences in what is asked above. Read this question. Given below are the 3 quotations of great thinkers. What do each of these quotations convey to you in the present context? So what exactly is there? What you can keep in mind is, in some question, what does this quotation convey to you? That is being specified. So if you is coming in any of the ethics question, you need keep some attention to it. If you is there, bring some personal examples, bring some personal dimension into your answers. It should not be a completely public administration answer, or it should not be a completely bioethics or ethical theory, utilitarianism, deontology answer. Try to bring your own some of the experiences, even if it is very small, even if it's related to preparation, but bring it in the conclusion. For me, this quote is this. Try to conclude in this aspect. In some of the question, if this to you is not there, what do each of these quotations represent or mean in the present context? In that kind of questions, you go for more of a current affairs related answers. In conclusion also, you conclude with the current need is XYZ cheese. Getting? So completely don't neglect the whatever is written about, try to at least read it. At least look at the whatever other question also, at least see if you is there or not. If you is somewhere written, then you try to bring some of your personal elements into your answer writing. Now, so that is, now we start with introduction. 3-line introduction is general for every answer. So what introduction you can bring in these questions, in quotation based questions? You told simplifying the quote is your approach. Like, look for certain aspect, look for aspects like whether the quotation is in support of any theory. We have learned a number of theory if you have prepared ethics, deontology, virtue ethics, justice, John Rawls theory of justice, capability approach, utilitarianism, social contract, a number of theories you have studied. If the quote is directly representing deontology or utilitarianism, then you can directly mention the name of the theory and start the answer. That is one approach. But that may not work in many of the quotations, because every quotation is not representing any theory. Second approach is look for what is the value the quotation is speaking about. Value means Here it is kindness. Other quotation it is about love. Some quotation it is about some XYZ other value. It's quite easier to do and it will work for most of the quotations. Look for what is the value. You can even look at what is the negative value. Hatred, some quotation is about hatred. So identify that value, define that value. If nothing is coming into your mind, define that value. Keep things simple. Speak about the that value and start the introduction. Another word here you can see also given below are the quotations of great thinkers. And to this year's quotation, last year I have seen some quotation of C.W. Lewis and all. C.W. Lewis, that was the author of one quotation. Now, if C.W. Lewis, if your optional is sociology or anthropology, you might have some striking, you might have heard of him. But if normal GS student, C.W. Lewis is complete stranger. So for him, he can do nothing, don't do anything. But in to this year quotations, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru and Swami Vivekananda. You studied all these people, you know what they have done, what is their political other ideologies. So you can contextualize this quotation or the meaning with respect to the authors. You can write few words about these authors and what does in their life, Gandhi's life, importance of kindness. You can see million examples. Jawaharlal Nehru and woman you can connect, write an introduction. Swami Vivekananda and importance of love, hatred, all these elements you can connect and you can start an introduction. So these are different, what you can say, 3 different ways you can approach the introduction. Now next step what we have to do is identify the key elements of this, key ideas of this quotation. This quotation basically I see 2 ideas, key ideas. Let's read the quotation once. The simplest acts of kindness are by far more powerful than thousands heads bowing in prayer. Mahatma Gandhi. What are the 2 ideas this quotation is speaking about?
Significance of prayer in comparison to.
ठीक है. You are saying insignificance of prayer in comparison to act. So one idea is act is important. Act is the significant thing. You act instead of bowing in prayer. Do something. That is important. That is one idea. What is the second idea? About the virtue. Kindness. It is speaking about simplest act of kindness. If that act is not guided by true values or guided by true principles, then the whole system collapses. So it's speaking about importance of kindness. Now 2 ideas we got. Our most of the work is done. Here kindness is starting first, so I can start with importance of kindness. I can significance of kindness. Something I can give a similar heading. 4 point, 5 point, that much is enough. I have done with it. At least 1 or 2 examples I can bring into it. That much is enough. I will speak why kindness is important. I can speak for anyone. Why kindness is important personally for me. Why kindness is important for a society. Why kindness is important for a civil servant. Why kindness is important as a nation. All these elements you can think and think on different various variants of kindness and you can generate points. Second part is importance of action over prayer. Somewhere here you can start with importance of action over prayer. Here also I expect 3 to 4 points. Why action is important? Because action brings changes. Action shows true intentions. Through actions only we achieve the progress. Action has a ripple effect. It can inspire others also to take XYZ actions. Action intensifies the XYZ values we are speaking about. So all these different elements of actions you can bring together 4 points. Now what you can add one more dimension is that is counter arguments. This may not be feasible in every quote. Some quote it's very difficult to counter that quote. So in that quote don't do this. Not like something compulsory part like intro, conclusion and body. But keep your minds open. If counter arguments you can generate for a quote, then do that. In this quote, what can be counter argument? We are speaking about importance of action. It is not that prayer is, we are saying that action is more important than prayer. But it's also not that prayer is completely irrelevant. Counter argument, you don't need to completely go against the quote. Prayer also has some significance. We are speaking about kindness. Prayer can also bring kindness. Prayers can, community prayer system, all this can promote the idea of virtue of kindness. Somewhere or the other, prayer also can play some kind of role. It is not that prayer is completely a bad thing. That's not the idea, right? So at least 2 points on here, 3 to 4 point here, 3 to 4 point here, one intro, conclusion. I am done with so much of points. If 3 part I can divide a quotation, there is plenty of points. Problem comes when you cannot divide the quote into different parts. 3 part is there, 2-3 points enough, 10 more than 10 point you got, right? You can go with this. Like, thing is, personal examples, idea is, it is not like you should not use other examples. Keep 1-2 points on personal examples. Keep overall tone of conclusion on personal basis. समझ रहे? You can use Gandhi's examples, but ऐसे भी नहीं होना चाहिए पूरा आंसर गांधी को ऊपर रख दिया. It's not about Gandhi, it's about the idea of the quote that is also having a setback. If you are writing whole examples you are generating from Gandhi's prayers, Gandhi do this, do that, that is also not too much. You can use 1-2 examples from Gandhi, बीच में अम्बेडकर को लेके आओ, बीच में कुछ और चीज लेके आओ, contemporary चीज लेके आओ. Don't focus too much on the author. It's more about the idea that is more important. So I hope you got the fair structure. So here you can see the answers. Importance of kindness, I am thinking on this basis. For self, why kindness is important to me? It adds some kind of meaning to my life. For example, service, lose in the service of others. That is also something taken from Gandhi. You can see a contemporary example like Kailash Satyarthi. Mental health, satisfaction, sense of satisfaction also comes in helping others, in showing kindness. Fosters positive relations. Kindness is basis of having even all kind of relation, friendships you can speak, relation with your partner, relation with your family, relation with your colleagues. Everything he needs some basis of kindness. Ripple effect, it continuing to inspire people, encourages empathy and compassion. Then some international examples. At least 1 point on this regard, that much is enough. 1 point here, 1-2 point here. We need only 4-5 points, right? Similarly, the same MIB, n number of examples you will get from kindness. If you have fairly go through it, like the kindness revolution campaign that is in United States in the last decade. Similarly, free hugs campaigns in Delhi. All these are like some kind of exhibiting the importance of kindness, importance of acting with kindness. You can even bring some kind of environment movements, Chipko movement that is contemporarily going on. Similarly, importance of acts over prayer, that is the second part of it. You can think of acts and manifest intentions, empowerment, educated women. So like one classic things of when we discuss the capability approach. What is capability? Who is the propounder of capability approach? Capability approach, Amartya Sen. So one of the classic cases of Amartya Sen, when we discuss the applications of Amartya Sen's capability approach is, if you speak about Indian women, they have education, they have wealth, they are from economic well-off families, they have social status, they are living in urban areas, everything is there. What do you expect? These women are productive members of the society. But what's happening in India is reverse. Well-off women have all the access to all the resources, even despite having high education, they are not working. So somewhere or the other, despite having resources or access to resources, it is not being converted into actual freedom or actual capabilities. So that if real empowerment should happen, then you cannot do it by preaching. You have to take some actions, you have to bring your actions into picture. Tangible outcomes, like you can see, always cite some movies, books that you come across. Like there was this movie, right, Manchi. What he done? He lose his wife and he was upset. And what he had done? He craved. He's called as Mountain Man of India. Why he's called Mountain Man of India? He himself made a hole or whatever in the mountains and made a road that reaches his village. Shows responsibility and accountability. Swachh Ghar, we speak so much good about Swachh Bharat, and you go to your room and it's become total mess. What's the point of preaching too much of Swachh Bharat in the class then? So everything should start from Swachh Ghar or Swachh individual, then only there is point of speaking about bigger things. And some point on international relations like Vaccine Maitri, where India showed its importance of action. Simply preaching we are the ethical leaders, that is not enough. Leadership also comes with actions. Counter arguments, not too much points. Don't make this the major part of your answer. Then you are going in the wrong direction. At least just for sake of giving, just give 1 or 2 parts. That is enough. Sense of empathy, idea of praying for others. Most of the religion has this idea of praying for others. Like even in the G20, what was the tagline? Vasudeva Kudumpakam. So it is speaking about welfare of the whole community, whole society, whole world as a one. So idea of bringing in our empathy list, bringing the whole world, all this can come some kind of religious aspect. Prayer, you can connect with this. As a reminder of moral values, we are speaking about kindness here. As fostering gratitude, promoting peace. All this can also, prayer also has its own certain kind of relevances. In conclusion, in essence, you try to bring something personal to you. The quote calls for genuine transformation that stems from concrete actions fueled by virtue of kindness. If you can bring some personal examples here also, then your answer will be complete. That will address the bigger part, that is, to you, what is the XYZ quote. Similar in this paper also, like why this is important this year, again it is because paper was on easier side. On easier side, then you have to manipulate your answer. Everyone can write about kindness, everyone can write about probity or other simple terms that is taken from the syllabus. So your answer, you should manipulate your answer exactly to the demands of the question. Then that will be rewarded highly. Now let's look at the second question, second quote. Go through the quote, keep a mental framework, what is the key ideas of the quote, then we will continue the discussion. Batao, what do you understand of the quote? Let's go through the quote once. To awaken the people, it is the woman who must be awakened. When she is on the move, the family moves, the village moves, the nation moves, by Jawaharlal Nehru. So what exactly the quote is saying? Importance of women empowerment, importance of woman in role of woman in development, in nation building, you can say, in awakening of the society, you can say. So if you want to split the quote into 2 different ideas, one ideas can be significance of woman in awakening the society. Second could be woman in nation building. That is the second part of the answer.
Different code, I did not know this name.
Mm-hmm.
I started with that. To teach a man, to teach an individual, to teach a woman.
Okay, you started the answer with another quote. Fair enough, no issues. No, it's no issues with the approach itself. But one thing you have to, like, starting a quote or any other question based on another quote, what you have to keep in mind is don't enforce yourself. If you are habitual of using too much quotes in your answers, if you have the idea of knack of remembering too much of quotes, and you remember some quotes that is too much relevant to the idea you are going to express, use it. Nobody is stopping you. Even in last year topper copies, rank 1 copies, you can see so much of the quote being overused. Most of the quote answers she is starting with the quote itself. But most of the people are not in this category. You write in all GS papers if quote is representing the idea. But don't do that. I studied a number of quotes and come for the exam. Now if something related come, I will put the quote. Don't go with this mindset. It is not necessary you should do this. If you don't do this, nobody is going to kick you for this. So keep in mind that what is important is relevance to the paper. If quote is relevant, use quote. If quote is not relevant, don't go for it. So these are the two ideas I can divide this quote. Let's see what have been written. The quote underscores the pivotal role of women in instigating to social transformation. First part is significance of awakening of women to awaken people. Why women should be empowered? What is the most important? What is one line answer for why women should be empowered? How can you say that? Men don't have empathy. Okay. So the core idea is 50% of the population is women. Demographically, 50 or more than 50% is women. Now, if you are not providing accessories to education, healthcare, any other social XYZ tools to the woman, then your 50% of the population is undernourished. It's living a life of poverty. If you're living a life of complete having no dignity, then what is your whole human development, other development, biggest economy, whatever XYZ you are speaking about, what is the whole purpose if 50% of population is not getting access to any of the benefits of the development or social progress or democracy or social contract, whatever we speak about. So they are constituent of everything. They are major stakeholders in everything. So that's the major idea, women should be empowered. Otherwise, whole your system will be having its own bias within itself. Tool against gender discrimination, lack of education, women as agents of change. Some of the initiatives like Seva initiative. Who is the author of? Who is the propounder of this? Ila Bhatt. Similarly, generational effect. If mother is educated, there is high chance she will focus on education. She will focus on health of the children. So generational imbalances can be nullified. Women in leadership position, gender sensitive decision makings can happen. Similarly, women in parliament, why we are bringing the 33% reservation bill. Recently you might have seen the triple talaq bill. More or less, what is the idea of triple talaq act? Now it is an act being passed, protecting the XYZ woman community from some kind of practice existing in a community. So here everything is about women, but who are discussing? Men sitting in the parliament. So can this be better discussed if more women are sitting in the parliament? So sensitivity or participative democracy ideas will only be upheld if women are also getting enough representation, not just parliament, all levels of governance, all levels of government. So much examples you can collect from MIB. MIB itself has a section on contemporary personalities. Here you can see different. Ila Bhatt is there. Mehta Patkar is there. Malala Yousafzai is there. So much of example, contemporary examples you can get about women. Similarly, the second part of the answer, that is how women on the move moves the nation. That is a kind of a ripple effect it creates. So if you empowered women, what kind of ripple effect it creates so that the whole national system will develop. Empowered woman empowers family. The idea of this woman to family to village, women in village councils, more resources towards public goods like water, sanitation, healthcare, women social empowerment tool against practices like child marriage, dowry, all these economic development, some kind of data. If you have remember from GS3, you can cite here. Women in science and technology means success of Chandrayaan 3. You might have seen women scientists. If you can remember some of the names, you can cite here. Women innovators, SFGs, microfinance groupings, all these are women-led programs. So some examples you can cite on this. Idea is here I'm not going for counter argument. Women empowerment, it's very difficult to bring out a counter argument to this quote. So I'm not going, it is not necessary to do counter to every quote. So two part at least I divide so that my process of generating, if I only divide this answer into significance of women empowerment, then challenge is generating 10 points becomes itself very tough task. After 5-6 points, then all points will be either repetitive or jugaad kind of point. So always try to divide at least the answer into two parts. Two parts is there, you can 5 points, you can fairly try to generate 5 points. Two examples you can fairly anticipate to do. Okay, so conclusion, the quotation recognize empowerment and awakening of women, leading to an unstoppable domino effect, leading to awakening of society and nation. Similarly, go to the third quote. What exactly is the third quote saying? Go through the quote once and pick out what is the key idea of the quote. बताओ. In this question also you start with a quote. Okay, which quote? Forgot. Okay, let's go through. Note an action and reaction. Yeah, cyclicity approach is there to prove that. Good. So let's go through the quote once. Do not hate anybody, because that hatred that comes out from you must in the long run come back to you. If you love, that love will come back to you, completing the circle. Swami Vivekananda. So here two ideas. What are the two key ideas you are going to pick from this quote? One is hatred versus love, virtue of love versus hatred. Second is the cyclicity element, cyclic element. If love is given, love will come back. If hatred is given, hatred is come back. So two elements I can split the answer. Now I can at least have to think on generating some points here and some points here. So introduction, the quote is the virtue of love over hatred and represents the virtue of love over hatred and accentuates the cyclic nature of emotions. Now the first part, significance of love over hatred. Simple to generate, easy to generate, doable. Why love is important? Practicing love and compassion makes people happier. For your own happiness, you try to preach love over hatred. It is not for that hatred have its own consequences. But its first primary cheese is like Buddha's quote you can use. Keeping anger is like having a poison in your own body, something like that. Preaching hatred means instead of harming the other person, more you are harming yourself. Diffuses tension and breaks the cycle of vengeance. If you go into the cycle of vengeance, there is no end to it. You can spread hatred from one to another, and the cycle can go indefinitely. Strengthens relationship if you preach love. Peace and harmony in the society, motivates acts of service, antidote to evils like terrorism, corruption. Indic values like tolerance also speaks about love. Quite very easy. I'm not going into examples or details. Fairly easy enough for you to develop significance of love over hatred. Second part. Yeah. What happened? Okay. You can speak to him if it's Yeah, so we are continuing with the second part of the answer, that is the cyclical nature of the emotions. Cyclical nature, you start with like whatever you give that comes back. You give hatred, hatred comes back. If you give love, loves come back. So hatred you can generate 2-3 points, love you can generate 2-3 points. That proves the cyclicity, that will be sufficient to this answer. Perpetuates, if you do hatred, it perpetuates feeling of fear, ignorance, trauma, feeling of being wronged, communal violence, reciprocating hatred, vicious cycle of violence. You can see if your every type arguments is not possible. So at some points you can directly use definitions also. For example, partition of India in 1947. Why it happened? Core idea resulted from hatred that is existing in the society among different communities. Similarly, cycle of discrimination and prejudice. You can think of caste system that is still being continued. On that note, importance of love, Gandhi's ahimsa and tools like Gandhi's ahimsa and satyagraha. It still continues to inspire freedom movements, rights movement, even in the Anna Hazare movement that is based on Gandhian principles. Even the modern climate solutions to modern climate problems like the Chipko movement, all these movements are one way or the other based on Gandhian ideas. Dispel stereotypes and prejudices, acceptance of interfaith marriage, you can speak. Humanitarian efforts during disaster, you don't handle a disaster with hatred. Role of fisherman community, one of the classic example of love you can speak is role of fisherman community in rescue operations during Kerala floods 2018. Expanding consciousness, that rising the trend of vegan movement. What the whole idea is? The whole idea is about bringing the in consciousness or the moving away from a anthrocentric world to a life-centric world. So your consciousness is not just about yourself, it's about other living creatures in the universe. So all these ideas you can generate 2-3 ideas on each angle, your work will be done. In conclusion, you can cite India's synthesis of tradition and innovation offers a blueprint for harmonious, emotionally balanced and sustainable global future. On similar note, something that proves the importance of cyclicity, something that proves the importance of love, you can conclude on that regard. So I hope you got a fair picture on the significance of or how to approach the quotation based question. Moving ahead, we are going into the fourth question. Go through the question, identify what will be the different dimensions you are opening in this question, then we will continue the discussion. Yeah, I hope you have gone through the question. Let's read the question once. What really matters for success? What really matters for success, character, happiness, and lifelong achievements is a definite set of emotional skills. Your EQ, not just purely cognitive abilities that are measured by conventional IQ tests. Do you agree with this view? Give reasons in support of your answer. So what does this question is about? What this question is about? Similarly, if you study the syllabus, you have detailed studied about emotional intelligence. And whenever you study about emotional intelligence, it is one of the classic dimensions that you explore. That is significance of EI above IQ and other skills. Now, if you have learned this, you have generated points for this, then you are coming for the exam. Now, in this context, what exactly is important in this question? Don't get carried away. Don't forget the importance of these words: success, character, happiness, lifelong achievements. Now, within this construct, you have to explore the importance of emotional intelligence over IQ or cognitive skills. Hope you are getting the construct here. Thing is, emotional intelligence, I hope everyone know how to approach, how to generate points. You have to manipulate, you have to answer according to the question. You have to change your answer according to the demands of the question. That is something of an art you should capture on. What really matters, for these elements you have to bring into your answers. For an introduction, like instead of into showing some kind of diversity in introduction, you can also start answer with data based introduction in ethics sciences. It is not just for other GS papers you use the data based introduction. In ethics also you can use, if you can remember some data that is relevant to the idea that is being represented, you can use that data here. Many studies, like one of the study, Talent Smart, found that EQ could account for 58% of a leader's job performance, and 90% of top performing leaders exhibit high emotional quotient. So that somehow shows the importance of high EQ. Similarly, in this question, one more thing what you have to keep in mind is, the question is, do you agree with this view? Give reasons in support of your answer. If the question is, do you agree with the view, you have to do a strategic analysis. What is the arguments in support of the quote? What is the argument not in support of the quote? And in the conclusion, what I expect is you to take a clear stance. And what is this clear stance? That means I agree emotional intelligence is important, or I don't agree emotional intelligence is that much important. What is important is your cognitive skills. Whatever is your stance, you have to take a stance in the conclusion. Don't give it, even if you are taking a balanced stand, both are important. Even that is also okay, but your stance should be clear by reading only the conclusion. That is the only requirement in question, starting with, do you agree? Moving ahead. So for every aspect, here are 4 different dimensions we need to explore: success, character, happiness, and lifelong achievement. So 4 dimensions are there. It's become quite easy. At least 2 points for every dimension, then you are done with it. Role of emotional intelligence and role of emotional IQ or cognitive skills. In success, what is the role? If you analyze, it is better management of stress. Stress management plays itself a role in different kind of emotional in success. Itself has a role in success, in resolving conflicts, in communicating effectively. All these elements you can reflect the importance of emotional intelligence. While in success, cognitive skill, problem solving skills, your technical skills, your education, your skill capabilities that is being tested, decision making skills, critical thinking that brings in innovations. These are the dimensions of cognitive skills. So these are which, on both aspects you can see, both are equally important: stress management as well as your competence. What led to the success of Chandrayaan 3? Of course, ISRO has its own technical capabilities. That is become Chandrayaan 3 become a success. But what is the importance of emotional intelligence? It became a success because we learn from our mistakes. We show the quality of perseverance. We show the quality of continuous improvement. That's why it became a success compared to Chandrayaan 2. So you can see, for success, both equally competing for emotional intelligence as well as IQ. In character, dominant role of EQ over IQ. In character, when try to explore, what we will find is emotional intelligence become more important in forming of character. Fundamentally in forming your character, what all dimensions emotional intelligence have? Self-regulation, understanding others, interpersonal relations, motivation, self-motivation to do XYZ act. So all these elements are one way or the other related to character formation. Understanding their own emotions, all these elements you can do. Upholds compassion, values like compassion, empathy, integrity, help in having resilience in the face of adversity. What is the importance of cognitive skills in character? Problem solving skills can also lead to resilience. Critical thinking can also lead to open-mindedness to new ideas. Something ideas like, when you go to Western societies where homosexuality is a normalized thing. Then your conventional, traditional ideas you kept about homosexuality is being exposed to a new kind of environment. It itself impacts your own thinking on this. So if you have to apply critical thinking on your own prejudices, your own biases, then that also helps in character building, and that also helps in molding your approaches. Similarly, role of emotional skills, role of cognitive skills. In happiness, dominant role of EQ over IQ. Mental health aspect you can see. In relationship management, the role of emotional intelligence you can speak about. But happiness is not just about emotions. It's also about solid achievements which comes with cognitive skills. It's also about personal growth where the cognitive skills has its importance. So in happiness, if you speak, dominant role of IQ is there. In lifelong achievements, if you speak, competing role for EQ and IQ you can see. Virtue of perseverance, collaborative network, learning skills, adaptive new situations, all these elements, one or two examples you can easily make up in this answer. So in conclusion, what you can conclude in MIB, we have extensively covered the emotional intelligence part. One or two references, examples you can directly pick out from this. Conclusion, what you can conclude is, while EQ is paramount for personal relationship, leadership and moral decisions, IQ has driven many of India's academic, scientific, strategic achievements. A balance of both is often key for comprehensive success. So if you want to actual success, meaningful success, then it's not just based on IQ or not just based on EQ. It's based on both of these. Both of these are required. But if you look at each of the 4 different keywords that is given in the question, there can be some mismatches in the role of how much is IQ dominant, how much is emotional intelligence dominant. So on that note, let's move to the question 4B. Go through the question and make yourself some perspective, then we'll continue the discussion. Yeah, let's read the question once. Differentiate moral intuition from moral reasoning with suitable examples. Again, a similar question in that we addressed two different questions on the very similar nature. What exactly is the major difference between intuition and reasoning? Intuition, somewhere around, it is instinctive. It is emotional decisions. It is rapidly made. These are different characteristics of moral intuition. While we speak about moral reasoning, what exactly is moral reasoning is about? That is based on ethical analysis. Seeing what exactly is important, seeing what are the consequences. It is based on looking at the consequences. It is based on looking at the what are the implications, what are the legal aspects, law, rules, regulations. All this will be coming into under when we are looking at the moral reasoning, societal aspects. But moral intuition, that is more of a personal attitude, you can say, personal instinctive judgment, you can speak. So if you have this fair differentiation, you can address this question well. Moral intuition and moral reasoning differ in their immediacy and depth of ethical evaluations. We're not going for defining based introduction here because our question itself is differentiate between these two aspects. So in the body we have included that. So in the body you start with differentiating from the definition. Moral intuition, it is nothing but immediate instinctual judgments we make about moral situation. For example, showing respect to seniors. If you are in Indian society, it's quite normal if you see a senior standing in metro or see a senior standing in the bus, instinctively you have stand up irrespective of thinking whatever is the XYZ situation. That is more about moral intuition. Similarly, you can think about moral reasoning involves conscious thought process and deliberations to make a sense of moral situation. Changing opinions on homosexuality post decriminalization of judgment in 2018. So after the Supreme Court decriminalized homosexuality, even within the Indian society, the debate over the same-sex marriage is being continued. So even in the Indian society, there has been a rethinking or a critical thinking on what exactly we should do with homosexuality, or is it ethically right or ethically wrong. People themselves or society as such itself is going some kind of changes in the thought process for in light of what the Supreme Court judgment is saying. Influencing factors often emotionally charged and deeply rooted in subconscious, shaped by cultural norms, personal experiences, biological predispositions. All these are the major aspect that influences moral intuition, a sense of linguistic, religious or regional loyalties. You are from South or you are from Tamil Nadu, you have some kind of affiliation to Tamil language. You have some kind of affiliation to the XYZ region you are coming with. Similarly, based on principles, rules, guidelines, and involves carefully weighing the pros and cons of different courses of action, right to privacy versus national security debate. So if you want to give a moral reasoning in complex situations like this, right to privacy, right to security debates, you have to give based on which theory. Based on, we apply a lot of theories like deontology, utilitarianism, virtue ethics, right approach, justice approach. From all this perspective, we have to analyze the situation. Then only we can go for a judgment. Occurrence, it precedes moral reasoning. First impression, immediate action, that is the moral intuition, requires active deliberation weighing different dimensions. Consequences, it also has its role. It is not like moral intuition is something that is wrong. It also has its role. How you can approach generating points? Generating 5 different themes on which you can generate a point. In the second question, if you remember, how we generated the point based on basic question like who, what, whom. Here you can identify 5 basic themes, and on that 2 points on each side, that will suffice the demands of the question. Consequences, helpful in emergencies, may lead to bias and prejudices, example favoritism. Inconsistency, like moral intuition has its issues. It is not based on rational thought process. It is not based on rational analysis. So it can change rapidly. It can be highly emotionalized. It can be highly personal. It can be highly inconsistent. While on being coming to the other side, informed and reliable, consistent decision making is one of the crux of moral reasoning. Systematic justifications, for example, moral reasoning against triple talaq we discussed right now, mostly in line with the law and existing legal consequences. In conclusion, you can conclude with both moral intuition and reasoning are essential frameworks guiding individual and societal ethical choices. Like importance of moral intuition and moral reasoning cannot be negated, or you don't need to take a stance also in this question. So you can highlight the importance of both in ethical decision making and conclude the answer. On that note, let's move to the 5th question. Go through the question once. Yeah. So let's continue our discussion. So what exactly is the question? Let's read the question once. Is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulations in the context of ethical decision making? Discuss. So what can be the introduction? You can simply define conscience and start the answer also. While conscience serves as an individual's inner compass, guiding personal ethical choices, laws, rules, and regulations provide a collective framework ensuring societal harmony and justice. So here, both these terms, purpose of conscience is being brought into picture. Very similar question compared to the 4B question, where we dealt with moral intuition and moral reasoning. Here we have conscience as an ethical decision making guide against laws, rules and regulations as an ethical decision making guide. Role of conscience, you have to, is conscience is being asked, and discuss is also there. So you have to write about both the different aspects of it. How conscience is can be an important part in the ethical decision making. How laws, rules and regulations can be a part of important in ethical decision making. Now based on this you can reach a, in conclusion you can take a stance. Again, is the keyword here. So your answer should clearly take a stance in either direction. Role of conscience in the context of ethical decision making. Innate moral compass. Mahatma Gandhi's beliefs in inner voice guided his non-violent struggle against the Britishers. Universal application you can speak about. Adaptable to unique situations. For example, Rajendra Prasad's conscience allowed him to mediate complex religious disputes during the 1940s times it is speaking about. Accountability to oneself. Beyond black and white differentiation, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. All these conscience plays a role here. Personal integrity and authenticity, R.K. Narayan's writings you can speak about. Transcending cultural and legal differences. The question is what exactly conscience brings into the picture. Sometimes law has to be evolved, it's on way based on the ethical thinking that is happening in the society. For example, Right to Privacy Act. Right to privacy was not a part of fundamental right till 2017. Now within the legal framework we see right to privacy as a part of fundamental right. Same goes with the homosexuality. So till 2018 homosexuality has been criminalized. So if somebody who is a homosexual, what should be his stance, what should guide his decision till 2018? Certain of his rights, bodily autonomy rights or right to life has been violated according to the current law. So what should guide his action, whether it should be driven by conscience or whether it should be driven by the existing legal system? This mismatch you have to bring out in this answer. Similarly, role of laws, rules and regulations in the context of ethical decision making. That is the second part of the answer. Structured governance, you can think about B.R. Ambedkar's contribution to the constitution. Uniformity and fairness, protection against anarchy, deterring unethical acts, evolution with societal needs. For example, like one of the classic example, Dr. Varghese Kurien's White Revolution, we so much of speak about. One major part of it, even despite respecting all the contributions of Mr. Varghese Kurien, one major contribution has been the supportive legal framework for dairy cooperative laws that is existing in Gujarat and other part of the countries, that also contributed its role. Similarly, you can speak about Article 17. What Article 17 is about? It is about completely negating or untouchability in all its forms. Abolishing untouchability in all its forms. So how it helped in overcoming the practices, how fundamental rights has guided the concept or strengthened the concept of human rights in India. All these elements you can bring into your contemporary examples like triple talaq case, you can bring into your answer. Conclusion, what you will conclude in this answer? Which one is important, conscience or law? It is better to take a balanced conclusion. Conscience, you cannot go completely with conscience. Law has its own advantages, its own preferences over conscience. So conscience cannot be more reliable guide over laws, rules and regulations in the context of ethical decision making. Like we are saying that law is more important, yet for a holistic and well-rounded judgments, a harmonious integration of the both is indispensable. So role of conscience you cannot negate. At the same time, it cannot be given preference over law, rules and regulations. That is the concluding language you can speak on and conclude the answer. Going ahead, go through the 5B question, then we will continue the discussion. Yeah, I hope you have read the question. Let's go through it once. Probity is essential for effective system of governance and socio-economic development discuss. So again, two aspects, very quite easy question. One is probity, directly taken from the syllabus. Everyone is going for the exam will have read the definition of probity, some examples related to probity. So you have prepared probity very well. Similarly, what exactly you have to connect it with? Effective system of governance. Second part is socio-economic development. So how you can approach this question? Effective system of government, in some way or the other, it is speaking about good governance. What exactly is good governance? What exactly is governance? Governance is nothing but how power is being executed in a XYZ organization. It can be a public organization, it can be a political system of the country, it can be a private organization, it can be within family also. All these system has its own governance structure. Now, when we say that a governance structure or a governance that is happening in a country is good governance, when the governance is executed in such a way that it holds certain values. And what are the certain values? Like transparency, participative in nature, accountability, integrity, honesty. If these values are upheld in the governance structure, then we speak that this is a good governance practice. It can be in the country, it can be in private organization, it can be virtually anywhere. So good governance also some part which is directly picked from the syllabus. So you can associate this with good governance and you can apply your standard framework of good governance in the answer and generate XYZ points. For socio-economic development, think different elements of socio-economic development. What are different elements of socio-economic development? It can include economic development, simply like what is economic development? GDP growth. What is economic development? More employment generation. What is economic development? Poverty reduction. Bring these elements. What is social development? Higher health indicators. What is social development? Higher educational indicators, higher equality, higher social indicators. All these forms, pick 4 to 5 dimensions, give how probity plays a role in this. Pick 5-6 dimensions of good governance, answer how probity plays a role in this. In definition, in introduction, you can start with defining what is probity. This is the whole construct you have to do. Probity is the quality of having strong moral principle, especially honesty and decency. Example, when the cashier accidentally gave him too much of change, John's probity led him to return the excess money immediately. You can give some examples. Idea is you define probity and start your answers. Going ahead, this is something World Bank classic definition of good governance. Good governance, it based on 8 principles. This you have to learn yourself. Like this is the approach you have to learn for each and every part of the syllabus. What is good governance about? Consensus oriented, participatory. Now how adhering to certain principles, higher standards of principles, that is probity is all about, helps in consensus building. How it helps in participatory, how it helps in following rule of law, how it helps in being effective and efficient, how it helps in being equitable and inclusive, responsive, transparent and accountable. At least 8 points if you are not remembering, no much issues. At least 5-6 values you can remember. 4 to 5 values, connect it with probity and give an example. That is all that is required. Role of probity in economic effective governance. Ensures participatory governance. Give an example of Gram Sabhas, 34 and 73 and 74 Amendment Acts. Consensus building, carried out, processes are carried out honestly. Like consensus building, when it will happen? It will only happen when you have trust in the stakeholders. When you can say that whatever the processes are being done honestly, are being done transparently. So for example, classic example is the GST Council. Why GST Council is able to work on consensus building? Because there is clarity on everyone's role. Central government has this much of votes, this much of shares of capacity of speaking, and this is how every decision is being made. Everything is made exactly clear. That is the power of GST Council. That is why everyone's roles and considerations are also taken into, or demands are also taken into consideration. That's why GST Council, most of the time you find them working based on consensus. Ensures accountability, no misleading information, voluntary disclosures under RTI Act. Upholds transparency, e-government portals like MyGov ensures no false narratives are being spread by the government or other agencies. Responsiveness, probity ensures that resources are distributed fairly. Distributory justice, it ensures distributory justice. Effective and efficient, voluntary subsidy give up initiative of the government. For many of the people has given the LPG cylinder subsidies. Equitable and inclusive, probity checks bias or favoritism, follows rule of law, wider judicial interpretation, right to privacy judgment you can speak about. So how probity you can connect with governance, that we have clarified here. That should be the major takeaway from this discussion. Going ahead, how probity in socio-economic development. I already discussed, think from what exactly is socio-economic development, pick 4 or 5 dimensions, then you try to answer it. Economic growth, less frauds, higher credit ratings, higher investment, it can lead to higher employment generation in the country, virtuous cycle of employment generation, prosperity, virtuous cycle of prosperity, poverty reduction, checking leakages like the DBT scheme in PDS, or digitization of PDS offices. Similarly, education and healthcare, higher investment by state, equitable, ensures equitable access, gender equality, investment in education of women, environmental sustainability, intergenerational equity you can speak about. So bring about the values or higher standards of probity, how it lead to better socio-economic development. Okay, culture of PILs, human rights and social justice, culture of PILs you can speak about. So probity also in MIB you get n number of examples, so much how you connect it with good governance. All this has been in detail covered in the MIBs. You can conclude with probity is not just a moral principle or an ethical principle. It is a fundamental pillar for effective system of governance as a catalyst for socio-economic development. On that note, on stressing on the importance of probity beyond a moral principle, you can conclude the answer. Now going into the last 2 questions, go through the question from make a mental framework of your own, then continue watching the classes. Yeah, so these 2 questions you can see a little bit of on factual side, but still there should be some kind of approaches you should use in these kind of question also, because you had these kind of questions like we have continuous basis on question on Buddha, we had questions on Gandhi, so you should learn some of these thinkers and go to the exam. But Guru Nanak was itself some kind of little bit of strange in the exam. What are the major teachings of Guru Nanak? Explain their relevance in the contemporary world. At least you have heard of Guru Nanak, he is a founder of Sikhism. This much you know. Then in his context, you should write what can be its major principles. At least 4 or 5 principles you should make out in your exam. Then when relevance, how will you see answer the second part, that is relevant in contemporary times. Same question has been asked on Buddhism. Importance, same question we have followed in our test series also. Importance of relevance of Buddhist ideas in contemporary time. So there has been approach how you can answer this part of the question. Even if you don't know too much about teachings of Guru Nanak, you can fairly attempt the relevance part very well. So introduction, you can write something about Guru Nanak, core ideas of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was the founder of Sikhism, a prominent spiritual leader and a social reformer whose teachings emphasized monotheism, equality, selfless service, and significance of righteous living, offering timeless wisdom that continues to resonate in addressing today's global challenges. So you are bringing its relevance as well as key ideas. Now, what are the teachings of Buddhism? Sorry, Guru Nanak: one God, equality, honest living and sharing, name no naam japna, langar, service to humanity. You might have seen about langar practices, rejecting rituals, embracing the will of God, who come. All these ideas, at least 3, 4, 5 ideas you come to your mind, you should write on Guru Nanak. That fairly represent the demand of the question. Now, how you can address the second part, that is relevant in contemporary world. One of the classic approaches, think on what are the major issues the world is facing, from climate change to corruption to terrorism to lack of trust in society to not having gender equality in the society. Think of 5, 6 global problems the contemporary world is facing. Now connect how these problems can be addressed by XYZ ideas propounded by Guru Nanak. That is only you can do. If you very easily you have read all the GS essay, everything, you can easily recollect what are the 5, 6 major issues the world is focusing on or the world is facing. Then you answer based on this. Climate crisis principles align with worldwide conservation movement. We spoke about increasing the consciousness. The crux of climate revolutions or the climate movements in throughout the world is based on this only, increasing the human consciousness to have all living beings, not just anthropocentric world. Economic disparities, concept like universal basic income, it all reflects the Buddhist ideas of service to humanity. Religious conflicts, his world based words parallel interfaith dialogue and promoting unity. Constructive way mein how you can promote interfaith dialogue. Gender inequality, equal emphasis treatment, his equal treatment doctrine echoes in campaigns like UN He for She campaign. Connect with some of the recent developments, mental health, rising materialism, racial discrimination. All these elements you can think of and you can connect some of the Guru Nanak's ideas and address the demand of the question. Conclusion is teachings offer a timeless perspective, addressing one core issues that modern world faces. So going into the last question, read the question, make yourself framework, then we will continue the discussion. Yeah, so this also, even though we don't expect direct question on social capital in GS4, it was also not too much of strange. You might have gone through the word social capital somewhere when you are reading GS3 or some other newspapers, all these topics. So what exactly is, even if you don't exactly remember what exactly is social capital, you can always connect social capital with trust in the society. You can always connect social capital with harmony in the society, values in the society. Collectively, everything of this is called social capital. If you can at least reach this much, you can fairly define social capital. Give an example of importance of trust in society. Give an example of having high values in society. Give an example of having harmony, importance of having harmony in the society. That will address the first part of your answer, that is, what is social capital. Technically, OECD views social capital as networks together with shared norms, values, and understandings that facilitate cooperation within or among groups. Different examples you can cite here. Now, second part of the question, how does it enhance good governance? A direct question on good governance. Here our task is quite simple. We have our own structured framework, the same good governance framework that we use for the other question. That is the World Bank 8 different dimensions of good governance. Now you simply have to connect how accountability, social capital how it enhances accountability in the form of strong community ties, civic engagement, accountability of local governments. All these ideas you can bring into picture. Role of Gram Sabhas, role of ombudsmans, Logayukta, all these ideas you can bring into forefront. Similarly, connect it with transparency, how social capital enhances transparency, how social capital enhances responsiveness, how social capital enhances equitable and inclusive decision making processes. All these 8 elements, concluding rule of law, participatory, consensus oriented governance. So whatever we have studied for the general structure of good governance, just apply it into a construct of social capital. What is social capital? Connect it with values, connect it with trust in the society, connect it with harmony in the society. So this is where you can generate points for this. I'm not going to read out every one of these. I hope this approach should be the major takeaway from this class. Going ahead, what exactly is the conclusion? Harnessing technology to build social capital and public participation could enable more accountable, transparent and participatory e-governance for an equitable and sustainable future. That is, you are stressing on the importance of social capital and its modern structural changes that is going on through e-governance, through adaptation of technology and all these aspects. So that ends our discussion, ends our ethics discussion on 2023 section A side of all the 13 questions we have discussed. Tomorrow we will be having section B discussion. All the 6 case studies we will be discussing in the tomorrow's class. One major only takeaway from today's class should be how you are approaching the different parts of the syllabus, how you are approaching different questions. Secondly, how you are adapting your existing knowledge to the requirements of the question. Only if you learn these tricks, only if you learn the trick of learning some frameworks and brainstorming with instantly, then only your quality of answer writing improves. Only if you can adapt your answers or pre-existing knowledge or the knowledge you read and came into the exam hall to the minute demands of the question, where there is you given, where there is comment given, where there is discuss given. If you can bring in some kind of adaptation and variance to all of these, then only you can hope to get exceptionally high marks. So that 2 aspects should be the major takeaways from all these lecture series. Very good evening everyone. So what we are going to do, we will continue our discussion on ethics case studies today. Yesterday we have comprehensively covered all the section A topics. You might have already noticed what our major focus was, how to think, how to approach different questions. Having a general mindset for how to approach different questions, that was the whole focus of yesterday's class. Then we see what different changes you need to incorporate in your answers with your existing knowledge base. What are some of the key factors you should focus on in answer writing, depending on different type of the question. For example, we discussed about the quote based questions. What changes you can make when you are speaking about what exactly if this quote mean to you is being asked, or if this quote mean in the current context is being asked, what kind of changes you incorporate in your answer. These kind of elements we have seen in the last class, everything with respect to section A. So in this class we'll focus on the section B, that is case studies. Before that, we already told this yesterday, the details you can check out from the website. We have 3 ethics courses for being released after the mains 2023. So the idea of 3 different courses is simple, like you buy the course which meet your requirement, which help you, which you have certain requirements or depending on your level of preparation. If you are somebody who has well versed, covered the syllabus, written mains before, or are very quite confident in the different syllabus in writing case studies and ethics section A papers, you better go for the ethics test series only. You just need to practice answer writing, get the right feedback on time and go into the paper, consolidate your ethics preparation. If you are somebody who is done some reading, done some courses in some foundation batches, or done some reading of XYZ ethics book, but you are not so confident in answer writing, you are struggling with how to address different demand of the question, or you are struggling with understanding the ethical demands, ethical arguments to make, struggling with making our ethical arguments in the paper. For these kind of issues, if you are facing, you can go with ethics marks improvement program. It discusses different crimes types of frameworks you can apply throughout the paper. Whole syllabus, how whatever the questions comes on emotional intelligence, what are the different dimensions you should think on. So whatever questions comes on probability, we see in the example of probability in the last class itself. So that was just a miniature version. In this course, you will get an expanded for every part of the syllabus, how you can approach different questions. Similarly, it's basically we will cover a lot amount of PYQs in this program also. The workshops are being done, conducted offline, and it will start on 7th of October. Going forward, if you are complete newbie to the ethics, you want to learn ethics from the scratch, you have time, more time to devote to the basics of the ethics, then you can go with the ethics foundation batch. It covers from the very basics what exactly is ethics and what exactly is dimensions, building argumentative dimension in ethics, building different example base, everything will be in detail covered in the ethics foundation course. It's around a 40-hour lecture series, then it will be accompanied with workshops and other associated content. So this is basic about the courses that is to be launched on ethics. Now going forward, what do you expect from these classes? I already told, our focus majorly is not on learning too much on what exactly is the content, what exactly delivering content is not our focus. Our focus will remain on how to approach different questions, how to meet the demand expectation in answer writing. So, and what kind of questions we seen in this year's paper, and what based on this, what kind of strategy we can evolve for ethics in if you are preparing for 2024 mains. So this will be the overall approach of the whole discussion. Now, yesterday we have seen so much of screenshots, so much of page screenshot from ethics marks improvement booklet. So this booklet is freely available from our website, or you can download it from our Telegram channel also. It contains, if you are struggling, such a person who are struggling with remembering examples, this is kind of a huge collection of examples for every syllabus topic for last 2-3 years, contemporary, whatever discussion debates is going on in the news, everything is comprehensively covered in this booklet. So if you need a comprehensive collection of examples for ethics, for value addition in ethics, do check out this booklet. This will be like one consolidated source for all your example needs. So this is like the page showing the section for case studies in the ethics marks improvement booklet. So you can see here, like last 5 pages of the booklet is related to case studies. Rest all the booklet is about the section A and different examples. So how we approach case studies. This is not just for in the marks improvement booklet, how in general how we approach case studies when we start preparing the course, and when we start discussing with the students who were writing the 2023 mains. If you look at the 2022 paper, what were some of the key issues a student who look at the section B is facing? What is a major issue the 2022 paper? Most of the case study you might have seen extremely long case studies. Some of the case studies have different dimensions of media, dimensions of killing of a police officer. Then the case is about some personal conflict. So the complexity was quite high. And what is the third exactly issue from a student perspective? Complications in 2022 paper. Third complication, it was long, complex, and number of questions were huge. Most of the questions, case studies came with 4 questions, 5 questions, that also 1 question similar to GS. So this whole construct made it quite very difficult paper to tackle. Now implication of all this will come in completion of the paper becomes quite very tough. So this was our scenario. This is what we were trying to comprehend and and resolve the issues. These were our main focus in when we developed the 2023 mains paper. Now coming to 2023, what kind of questions came? If you have fairly gone through the questions, or if you have seen the trend analysis video, we have already discussed that this year almost all case studies are extremely short, 2 paragraph, 3 paragraph, that be not too much of complexity. But interesting part is many of the case studies were kind of application type case studies. That is not quite difficult to tackle if you have a plan, if you are consolidated with syllabus preparation, then it's not quite a difficult case studies. Similarly, number of questions in most case studies are 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 questions also, it's not like GS question or complex question. Questions are very straightforward. What are the ethical issues associated in the case? What are evaluate the different options in the case? We'll see today. So if you, from trend perspective, if you look, there has been a complete reversal in the nature of questions that is being came in, especially in the case studies. It quite evidently seen in the case studies. Now again, same logic what I told today. In this paper, if you are writing this paper, the whole advantage you can get is by completing the paper decently. If you are just attempted what is the requirement of every question and completed all the paper, you are having a significant advantage. Now come to 2022 paper. Here completion, advantage of completion paper is nullified. Almost every student who written 2023 mains might have fairly attempted the paper, fairly completed the paper. It's only 2-3 questions being asked in case studies, and it's also not long case studies. So this is not the challenge. Now when paper become easy, when paper become less challenging, what is the deciding factor? Deciding factor comes to quality of your answers. Now here is where the judgment going to happen this year. You might see if you are missing out on not writing in impressive introductions, if you are missing out on not writing impressive conclusions, if you are not writing points in a logical order, if you are missing out some of the dimensions what is asked in the paper, everything, these kind of mistakes, structural mistakes if you make in the paper, everything is going to be severely punished this year, because the questions are such that many of the students will write absolutely stunning answers, because whatever you read in the syllabus, whatever notes you read, whatever test series you do, even so many questions in section A as well as case studies are ditto from our own test series also. Many of, if you ask any test series that decently follows the whole syllabus, might get so many questions replicated from the test series. So all this advantage make the game of quality. You have to have the ability to generate ethical arguments. You have to have a plan how you are going to bring quality into your paper. So that is whole about the construct. Now how to address case studies. There are some basic rules you should keep in mind when addressing case studies. The most fundamental thing is do not overread it. You cannot expect next year a short case studies come, next year a long case studies come. Whatever it is coming, you should have an ability not to overread it. Now how to avoid overreading, like reading the case study 2 or 3 times. You don't have luxury of time for doing all this. Now how to avoid this? You should have an approach to how you are going to read the case studies. You should have a pre-plan in your mind what you are going to think. Are you going to look at the stakeholders? What I usually suggest is look at the stakeholders. Who are all the stakeholders? If father is there, son is there, mother is there, make them some round or underline. Do something to pinpoint each the stakeholders. Look at the what is the demand of each of these stakeholders. What is their requirement? What is their demand? What are they fighting for, or what is their values? If this much you can understand in a case study by reading it once, who are the stakeholders, what is they want, and what is their guiding values. If this much you can reach, then ethical issues, where ethical issues will come. Ethical issues will come from conflicting values. And this much, if you can think while reading the case studies, then you can think of ethical issues from the value perspective. It is only when you write in terms of the value, then only your answer become ethics related answer. Otherwise, if ethical issues is being asked, you are writing something else, it doesn't make any sense. Similarly, what else? Students has this habit of writing stakeholder diagram. What to do with this? It's better you not do it. But again, it is a subjective call. If your case study is short enough, if you have luxury of time and space, you need to fill the papers, then go for making the stakeholder diagram. If you have a long case study, your approach should be a normal introduction. That is a 2 or 3 line introduction. Then you directly go to what exactly is asked in the case, ABC, whatever it is asked, you write in that direction. Now, how to make your introduction interesting? What work you can do on making introduction interesting? First and foremost point, what you can do is, simple way is highlight the ethical conflict. Highlight the highest ethical conflict. Is it a conflict between work-life balance, or is it a conflict between 2 employees in an organization? What exactly is the conflict in the case study? Highlight the major conflict. That is the easier way to introduce. If you can remember some of the current affairs, linkage topics with regarding similar to the case studies, especially for these case studies which is related to pollution, especially to those case studies which is related to something like war, terrorism, or some kind of illicit activities going on, that case studies mostly will be derived from some current developments that happened in the near past. If you can relate some current affairs developments, you can obviously start your case by mentioning that development as it is. So these are different approaches. Now, how you make your case study exceptional, how you can make your case study stand out is, or how you can address if a challenging case study, challenging paper come next year, a lengthy paper come, how you can address the demand of the paper decently. What approach we followed last year was, here you can see this is about case study based on public sector. Similarly, we have divided case studies based on last 10 years inference. What type of case study is being asked in the paper? Case studies based on public sector, case studies based on private sector, and case studies based on application. Here there is gender, here there is environment, different aspects. In private sector, in pollution, private companies enforcing some unethical activities. So we have identified around 10 themes, 12 themes, that is around 10 themes that is continuously being repeated in the last 10 years. Even in the 2022 paper, 2023 paper, you will see case study related to compensation, case studies related to pollution, case studies related to work office conflict. So these themes are continuously being repeated. Only number of stakeholders is changing. So identify the themes. If you want a pre-identified list, go to the MIB booklet, see the last pages, you will get 10 different themes. If you can do it yourself, do it yourself. Identify what are the, what you can say, repeated themes in the case studies. Now, once you identify the repeated themes, what you have to do is, you go for making a model answer for this. What are the ethical issues under this theme? What are the ethical issues beyond that? What are the options you can generate in this case? And what can be the best course of action in this case? What are the reasons, pros and cons, evaluation of each option you are going to do in this case? So make notes for all these themes. Makes current affairs linkages for all these themes. If you do this exercise, even at reading the MIB booklet or by yourself, or whatever end, if you have identified the themes of the case studies, if you have done, make your notes for it, that consolidates your mains preparation. Whatever question paper comes for 2024, at least 3-4 questions from your notes or these themes or related areas. You can easily generate, if for these 10 themes you have learned to generate ethical arguments, generate ethical issues dimensions, generate what can be the options for 10 themes, then it is understood that you any themes, any case study comes, you have some kind of solid point with you. So this can be one your solid approach to make your case studies, make your arguments stand out. It is not a game of innovation during the exam. Many times we hear the comment that you should come up with innovative options, you should come up with innovative suggestions. But many a times understand that this innovation, whatever people are speaking about, this doesn't happen during the exam. It doesn't happen when you are sitting for the exam. If you want this to happen, you have to prepare it should happen in your preparation. And how to prepare this is what we have been discussing all so far. So I got you had a clear picture on how you should approach case studies in ethics. So on that note, we will go to 2023 question. So this is the seventh question, number 7, 20 marks question. I want you to, if you are watching online, pause the video, you go through the whole case once, then we will continue the discussion. You can read the case. Yeah, I hope you have read the question. Let's continue our discussion. So let's read the questions once. You're working as an executive in nationalized bank for several years. So who you are an executive. Okay. One day that you can consider it as stakeholder 1. One day, one of your close colleagues tells you that her father is stakeholder 2. Tells you that her father is suffering from heart disease, stakeholder 3, and needs surgery immediately. She also tells you that she has no insurance and operation will cost about 10 lakh. You are also aware of the fact that her husband is no more and she is from a lower middle class family. You are empathetic about her situation. However, apart from expressing your sympathy, you do not have the resources to fund her. Okay. A few weeks later, you ask her about the well-being of her father and she informs you about his successful surgery and he is recovering. She then confides that the bank manager, another stakeholder, 4th stakeholder you can say, was kind enough to facilitate the release of 10 lakh from a dormant account. So there will be some dormant account owner, you can call it him 5, of someone to pay for the operation with a promise that it should be confidential and be repaid at the earliest. She was already started paying it back and will continue to do so until it is all returned. Understood the question? So bank is you are an executive in this. Always fix who you are. whatever answer you are going to, there are so many questions, it asks about your response in this question also. So when you are speaking about your response, you should have an absolute clarity on who you are and limit your whatever actions you are going to suggest based on who you are. You should have a clarity on this. So the story, I think, is clear. What is the issues we need to address? What are the ethical issues involved in the case? Evaluate the behavior of the bank manager from an ethical point of view. How would you react to the situation? 3 questions we need to handle. So first, how we start with introduction? Most easiest way, that is highlight the core ethical issue in this question. Situation involves emergencies can sometimes blur the line between what is ethically correct and what is not, as seen in the scenario between a bank manager and an employee. So what the introduction is saying, when situations of life comes, when situations of emergency come, it is quite very difficult to understand the line between what is ethically right and what is ethically wrong. And it is on this construct the whole case study is made, where a bank manager and his employee is having a XYZ kind of interaction that raises serious questions. On this note, we are starting the answer. 3-line introduction, directly move to what is exactly asked. What is asked here? Ethical issues involved in this case. So yesterday when we were discussing the class, what focus we were keeping it on? How you can develop your argumentation on different aspects of the, how you can develop different type of arguments, ethical arguments in different questions. All that knowledge you use in the section A, it equally applies to section B also. Here also, whatever the frameworks we have learned ourselves or equipped ourselves in section A, that framework some level you should find get the application in the section B also. See how it is done. This is one of the classical framework we always discuss in the section A. Whenever you have to dissect some of the XYZ incident has happened. Here it is already happened. What the bank manager already given, whatever amount has to be given, the decision is already being taken and the result is already in front of us. It is after this we are going to dissect the ethical dimensions of this. Whenever you have to dissect an incident or a application or any XYZ news, random news that came up, for example, the women reservation bill, whatever you have to, how you develop different ethical argumentation in support or against women representation bill that is introduced recently in the parliament. The idea is think from different theories. These theories we deal comprehensively in our ethics classes, from virtue ethics of Socrates or Aristotle to deontological ethics of Immanuel Kant to utilitarianism approach to contractarians, justice approach, John Rawls theory of justice, rights-based approach, capability approach of Amartya Sen. These are some of the theories we already know. We already have a basic idea of what these theories are. Now, what we want to do is apply this theory and find ethical issues. Apply these theories into the whatever the question that is being asked. That is, in this case, we have to apply these theories and find ethical issues. How you can apply virtue ethics? Virtue ethics, what virtue ethics speak about? Virtue ethics speak about character. Whose character is in question in this case study? Character of the bank manager. He has done something that is dishonest. He has done something that is unacceptable. He has done something that violates XYZ virtues characteristics, violates principles of honesty, truthfulness. So character is the first thing you can think of from virtue ethics perspective. Deontological principle. What are the moral principles he has violated? He violated the rule, bank procedures. Dormant account means it is somebody else's money, not the money of the bank manager. He has violated these rules to XYZ arrange the fund for the employee. Whatever the purpose it is, deontological approach will focus only on one thing. Whether there is a violation of ethical rules or moral principles. Similarly, utilitarianism approach. there can be long-term consequences. What is utilitarianism approach all about? It is all about greater good of greater people. Here you can see some greater good has already been happened because the surgery already being conducted, the father is being saved. But what is the dangers of this? It can set a dangerous precedent. You can speak of slippery slope. What slippery slope is all about? Slippery slope is all about if you allocate money from a dormant account today, tomorrow it can be allocated for some fraud activities, from some illegal activities, from some activities that violates the principles of banking. Similarly, you can think from contractorians, you can think from justice approach, fairness, right to property, rights approach, you can think right to property of the whatever the account holder, dormant account holder is being violated here. So all these different aspects, think on these dimensions, you can at least generate 5-6 ethical issues easily. You can see what we have done in this answer. Yeah, think from virtue ethics. He demonstrated dishonesty and lack of integrity by using funds from dormant account without permission. Somebody else's money the bank manager is using without permission. Similarly, deontological perspective. What is deontological perspective? Violation of moral principles like respect for property, fidelity, non-maleficence. What is it? Maleficence? Non-maleficence, do no harm. Rule of law, various moral principles has been violated under this deontological perspective. Utilitarianism perspective, we already said, it set a dangerous precedent. It can go out of hand if other managers or other employees in the bank also start doing this. Slippery slope argument. Justice perspective, unfair as it is not manager's hand to decide how to use the fund. Similarly, rights-based approach, property rights of the account holder compromised. Capability approach, compromise the ability of manager to maintain trust. Speak about importance of trust in various public organizations, including nationalized banks. So these are different ethical issues you can highlight in this case. I hope you got a fair idea of how to apply this approach. Why we use this approach, our major objective is not to show you different dimensions. This dimension you can even generate without any approach. But if you learn to use this approach, if you have 5, 6, 7 approach ready in your hand, whatever the case come, you can apply some of these approaches and your generation of ethical issues, arguments becomes quite easy. On that note, let's go to the next part of the question. What in the next part we have to do? Evaluate the behavior of the bank manager from an ethical point of view. So what we can do here? Evaluate means you have to write the positive as well as negative sides. You have to write the ethical arguments in support of the manager and ethical arguments against the manager. So how to generate points here? In last part we generated points looking at the incident from different theories, different ethical theories. Now let's try to learn a different approach. You can divide the bank manager's conduct into different parts. The major issue he created or the major problem he done is release of fund from the dormant account. So what are the positive and negative aspects of this? Think on this, generate at least 2 points on this. Second, the matter is kept confidential. It is not, thing is like yesterday also we seen a question, similar question. If you have to do something that is beyond the law, if you are going beyond the law under certain circumstances due to the emergency situation, it is never okay to keep it confidential. It is never okay to hide the matter and do the thing. You should always document. You should always highlight what is the emergency situation. You should highlight the logic or legal aspects of it. You should consult legal consultants and reach a conclusion. There are other provisions of the law which applies in this case. Only on that basis you can go beyond certain legal precedent. Keeping the matter confidential, that is never being accepted. So this conduct also you generate 2-3 points on based on this. Third is to be repaid at the earliest. Like the woman already started paying back the loan, and the woman already paying back, and she's saying that she will continue to pay this money back as soon as possible. So this construct, what is the ethical positive, what is the ethical negative aspects of this. So what we have done here, we need more number of points to be generated. And what is one of the easiest path for it? The conduct of the manager, we are trying to divide into different heads. At least 2 or 3 parts you divide the conduct of the manager. You generate your points from each of these heads. That makes your work quite easy. Now see what answer we have got after this. See, evaluation of behavior of bank manager, ethical arguments in support of the manager. He exhibited compassion. He helped the woman out of compassion. Similarly, as sympathy, empathy, all elements you can bring into. It is the moral duty of human being to save a life. Whatever the decision bank manager has taken, he has taken it with a good intentions. That you can prove it here. There is no personal gain involved. He has taken the mitigating emergency circumstances. He has shown his ability, or he handled that emergency situation so that a life is being saved. That needs to be appreciated. And he also made a provision to repay the bank loan as soon as possible, and the woman also started paying back. These are some of the aspects where you can support the bank manager. Some of the ethical arguments you can say in support of the bank manager. But on the other hand, what you can say, the bank manager violated rules, precedents, rule of law is being violated. There is breach of trust, there is procedural lapses, there is confidential. If it is kept confidential, that means there is lack of transparency in decision making. There is misuse of funds. There is attempt to cover up whatever is happened. There is failure to explore other alternatives. Taking money from a dormant account is per se illegal activity. So bank manager should have looked for some other alternative, some other legally more feasible alternatives to help the employee. Never conclude the answer with saying that the bank manager shouldn't have helped the employee. The bank manager should have helped the employee, but the means that bank manager adopted is completely questionable. You should write a statement after this also. Like when the question is evaluate, what is the conclusion of your evaluation? That also you should bring into your answer. That the objective of the bank manager can be substantiated to some extent. Being said, there is no way the means adopted by the bank manager can be substantiated under any grounds. That should be your conclusion after the ethical evaluation. Going ahead, the third part of the question, how would you react to this situation? In this question, you should understand who you are. You're not bank manager, or you're not the employee who is being affected by this. You are an executive in this nationalized bank. So it is from that perspective you should speak how you should react to this XYZ situation. When you respond also, you can try to, when you think from a uni perspective, if you think what will be my response, then you directly jump into the situation, then it's always quite difficulty to generate 7-8 points. So what you can do here, think to break up the question. What is your response to manager's contact that we have discussed in the last? What is your response to bank as an institution, or the impact of this contact on the bank as an institution? What is your response to the issue at hand? That is, when certain emergency issue came, what is your response to that? What is your response from post case scenario? That means whatever that has to be happened or has already happened. The bank manager already given the money, already taken the money from the dormant account. Now what you will do? Will you report the case to the authorities? Will you report the case to the bank? Will you directly talk to the manager? So all on these different fronts, you try to generate 2-3 points. You will get more than 10 plus points quite very easily. Some of the points are given here. I'm not going too much into discussion, but this approach is what you should keep a focus on and learn. Advise against unethical practice, counsel the disclosure, insist returning funds, recommend legal options, uphold banking rules, refrain from cover-up, highlight improper action, urge remedial action. All these are different ways in which you confront the what has already happened. But thing is, when your response is being asked, it is a generalist question. Your response should not be only based on bank manager's contact. Your response should take into consideration all other factors. Your response should have what is your response to bank as an institution, to the particular emergency issue. Everything should reflect in your answers. That way you can generate more number of points. And in conclusion, you can conclude with similar lines. While human empathy can lead to acts of compassion, it is essential to ensure that ethical boundaries and institutional protocols are not compromised, as they safeguard the interest of all stakeholders. Thing is, we are dealt in a situation where some decision has been taken based on empathy, compassion, but that whatever he has done is completely unethical. Whatever stance you take, don't completely support the manager's conduct. On that note, you can conclude the answer. I hope you got a fair idea how we are approaching generating different points in different answers. Let's move ahead. Let's read the question. Pause the video here, read the question, then we will continue. Yeah, so let's understand the second question or the eighth question in your paper. Let's read the question once. Again, the same practice we will do. We'll try to identify who are the major stakeholders of this case. Then we try to generate points by following some of the framework, some of the approaches to different parts of the answer. Let's speed it up things. A landslide occurred in the middle of the night of 20 July XYZ in a remote mountain hamlet approximately 60 kilometers from Uttarkashi. Okay, the landslide was caused by torrential rain and has resulted in large-scale destruction of property and life. Property and life destruction has been happened. So those who are impacted by this can be a stakeholder. You are district magistrate of that area. Okay, you have so much of powers, you are in a responsible position. Have rushed to the spot with a team of doctors, NGOs, media and police along with numerous support staff oversee the rescue operations. So you made a team when the disaster has happened, has rushed to the place. You are district magistrate. A man came running to you with a request for urgent medical help for his pregnant wife. So we have a new man here. Then we have his pregnant wife who is in labor and is losing blood. So she is in a critical situation. You directed your medical team is there to examine his wife. They return and convey to you that this woman needs blood transfusion immediately. Upon inquiry, you come to know that a few blood collection bags and blood group test kits are available in the ambulance accompanying the team. Few people of your team have already volunteered to donate the blood. So a person and his wife has approached. She is in a critical condition and the doctors are there and there is some kind of medical system available to conduct the blood transfusion that is to be conducted soon. Being a physician, you who has graduated from AIMS, you know that blood for transfusion needs to be procured only through recognized blood banks. Your team members are divided on this issue. Few favor transfusion while others oppose it. The doctors in the team are ready to facilitate the delivery provided they are not penalized for transfusion. You are in dilemma. Your professional training emphasizes on prioritizing service to humanity and saving lives of individuals. So we have a situation, even the district magistrate is a doctor, a disaster has happened, the rescue team has reached the spot, pregnant woman needs blood transfusion. But there is a legal precedent that blood transfusion can only happen from recognized blood banks. So if we wait for recognized blood banks, emergency medical service cannot be provided to the woman. So what is the major difference from this case and the last case we have discussed? In the last case, what we were doing here was, we were looking at an incident that already happened. Whatever has to happen has already happened in that case. That case also had an element of saving a life. That also had similar values of compassion versus legal precedent. A similar ethical dilemma was also there in the previous case. But that case, whatever has to be happened has been already done by the bank manager. Here we are dealing with a situation where you are in the middle of the crisis. Now, whether your stance changes, where in the first case, when the unethical conduct has already happened, for ethical, humanitarian or compassionate conduct, you have given secondary preference. You criticize the bank manager. You criticize the bank manager for his adoption of means. Now you are reached a case studies where you have a similar case where legal aspect as well as humanitarian aspects are coming into conflict. But here the incident has not happened and you are standing in the middle. You have to take a decision. Now here how you are going to address this question. What are the ethical issues involved in the case? Evaluate the options available to you being district magistrate of the area. 2 questions you have to answer in this case. What other aspects you can think of to apply? In the other previous question, the crux of the question where it goes. The crux of the question goes to your ability to do ethical analysis to a post facto incident. Here what you have to show is what in this evaluate the options available. You have to show your problem solving skills. You have to show your problem solving skills. You have to show your ability to adopt critical thinking into different situations. Then only you can find an optimum or a above average answer for this question. Let's move ahead. So what kind of introduction you can do? In remote hamlet, following a devastating landslide, a magistrate faces critical ethical dilemma involving life of a pregnant woman and adherence to medical protocols. So I'm not going with any of the fancy introductions. Simply I have summarized what is the major conflict here in this case. Balancing human life against established medical guidelines put the district magistrate in a precarious situation. So this is also another way of introduction, where if you are not too much confident of any current affairs incident, or if you cannot link it with any other aspects, what you can do is you can connect it with you can simply summarize the case study. You can bring in the major stakeholder who is facing some ethical issues and put him in the case. This is a major ethical issue faced by this stakeholder in this case. This can also be one way of introducing the answer. Rohit Kumar, namaste Rohit. Yeah, let's go ahead. So the next part, what are the ethical issues involved in this case? How you are going to address this question? Again, what our approach here is? Our approach here is to not to show you these are the ethical issues. Our approach here is to show you how you can think, generate different ethical issues in a case study. To make you give you exposure to some kind of frameworks. See what frameworks we are going to do here. Think of different aspects. Think from different stakeholders who are available here. Think from the perspective of women. If you are thinking from the perspective of women, what is the major question? That is a question of right to life. If you are thinking from the perspective of organization or public administration, then it is a question of law and legality or rules. Another stakeholder is district magistrate. From a doctor's Hippocratic oath, where the life should be given priority. But at the same time, there is another code of conduct that a doctor should follow in any XYZ situations. So there is a conflict between doctors also. Administration, what is the issues facing? Risk of doing transfusion. Like, think a little bit ahead. Why we are saying that the medical code of precedent says that transfusion should only happen from recognized blood banks. Why it is saying so? Why the law? What is the logic of the law? Because it can lead to certain kind of risk. The woman can get infected of some unknown diseases. The woman can have risk of some kind of new diseases. The baby can also be risk. So to avoid these risk, undertaking this unnecessary risk, a law is being made. So you can think on the perspective of why, what is the logical reason behind the XYZ law that is being in the, or legal precedent that is being in the question. So if you can divide into these different stakeholders dimensions, generating points become easy. And these are some of the ethical issues: right to life versus standard procedures. Similarly, beneficence like versus non-maleficence, violation of autonomy principles, compromising professional integrity and legality, compromising team dynamics. Like doctors are also being divided on this matter. Resource allocation issues, like we are already handling a rescue operation. So either when we are going for a rescue operation, either your law is incapable, you don't have enough law that supports the rescue operation team, or your rescue operation resources, that can be blood bank, that can be XYZ other resources that you can go to take to a emergency situation, that is not equipped. At some level there are certain issues, you should go deeper and find these issues. Conflicting roles, like the district magistrate himself is a doctor, so he is also in a kind of a mental conflict. So these are some of the ethical issues you can think of in this case. How we reach these ethical issues? We thought from different stakeholders involved in the case, what each stakeholder's issue he is facing. We try to generate at least one issue for each stakeholders, and that will suffice our XYZ purpose. Similarly, the second part of the question, evaluate options available to you being a district magistrate of the area. This pros and cons analysis, I hope every one of you do. Only one thing I need to suggest in writing the pros cons for every answer, what you should keep in mind is don't overdo this. If you try to bring ethical theories or any other frameworks we try to apply to the pros and cons, I'm pretty sure you can write 5-6 pros and 5-6 cons. And if you generate 3 to 4 options, then that will take all your space. So it is always better you try to limit your pros and cons into 2 or 3 points. 3 points of pros and 3 points of cons, that is all we need. Once you do this much is the limit, number of limits you have to do. But you have to keep in mind that number of options you have to generate. Here you have to exhibit your problem solving skills. Here you have to exhibit your critical thinking, your out of box thinking. You can, if you have pre-prepared some of the innovative options, you can put this in the options being generated. How many options you can generate? If 4 options you have generated, that's perfectly fine. If 5 options you can generate, that's great. On minimum basis, if you are running out of the time, at least generate 3 options. But don't come by generating just 2 options. In any case, the 2 options will be obvious. What we are checking here by generating different options is your practical problem solving skills. So you need to exhibit that skill. If you are generating 2 points, there is nothing that going to be evaluated out of that 2 points. So don't generate 2 points, generate at least 4 to 5 points. When writing pros and cons, limit yourself to writing 2 or 3 points on each section. But keep in mind that you should take into consideration all the stakeholders. Try to, if in especially in the last year's case, there has been passing references when even though the case study is about a certain issue, that is legal aspect of issue, that is illegal migration into the country, or a case is majorly about a public administration issue, but there is a passing reference of the sick mother of the civil servant, there is a passing reference of the child education of the civil servant. So when this kind of references are being made, try to make sure somewhere in the pros and cons you are using that stakeholder also. Every stakeholder in the case somewhere should find mention in the pros and cons. So on that note, we will move ahead, see what all are the options generated in this case. So one is allow immediate blood transfusion with available volunteers. So we have a conflicting situation. You are standing in between, either allow the blood transfusion, that means neglect whatever is the legal precedent, or you say that only through blood bank you can do the transfusion and don't do this in the emergency spot. So these are the two obvious options available with you. What can be other options? As a civil servant, I already told in the last part, whenever you have to take a decision that is against some kind of laws, law is not an end in itself. There were other superseding laws. So try to have a broader perspective of law. Sometimes there may be other law that applicable in this situation. Sometimes there may be some other legal provisions. You are district magistrate. You have so much of overriding powers. Maybe under some certain circumstances, considering the emergency situation, you can override some of the medical precedents. So look for that kind of a laws which gives district magistrate the power to override the legal precedent considering the emergency situation. You are not standing in a normal situation. You are standing in a landslide rescue operation situation. And you are a district magistrate, that means you have access to so much of the power. Now bring the different stakeholders into the construct. Like here the pregnant woman is there. Take the consent of the pregnant woman's family. Take her husband, take her family into consideration and show them or communicate with them the complexities of the case and get their consent if blood transfusion has to be done. Thirdly, you can keep in mind that last case study also I told, if you are doing something like this, document it. Give proper documentation, send proper XYZ files of why you are taking this decision. Do not, whatever decision you take, do not try to keep it under the carpet. So these are some of the provisions you can keep in your mind while generating different kind of the options. So we have generated here 4 options. Allow immediate blood transfusion from available volunteers. Evacuate the woman to a nearby hospital with a recognized blood bank. Inform the family of the risk and let them decide. And if they decided, conduct the blood transfusion there itself. Delay the decision, seek team consensus. Let the doctors themselves reach a decision and proceed based on that. So these are different aspects you can think forward. You can generate more options. Pros and cons, I'm not going into too much of the discussion. I hope you can write it on yourself. So for conclusion, considering the urgency, in this conclusion, I'm going to prioritize. If you ask me which decision you should take, always prioritize right to life. Here you have a situation, emergency situation. You are district magistrate. You have XYZ powers, and based on your powers, try to prioritize the right to life of the pregnant woman. Get her whatever medical help she needed in emergency. That should be your primary conclusion attitude. Considering the urgency, the best course of action would be to inform the family of the risk associated with an immediate blood transfusion from the available volunteers, and based on their informed decision, proceed accordingly. So that is you are taking into consideration the most immediate stakeholders in this case. On that note, we will wrap up this case study. So this is the 9th case study, third case study of the day. Read the case study, then we will continue the discussion. Gone through. Yeah. So let's continue our discussion. So let's read the case once. At 9 p.m. on Saturday evening, Rashika, a joint secretary, was still engrossed in her work in the office. So Rashika is a stakeholder. At 9 p.m. already in late night, she's already doing the work in her office. Her husband Vikram, so her family can be a stakeholder, is an executive in an MNC and frequently out of the town in connection with his work. Their 2 children aged 5 and 3 are looked after by their domestic helper. At 9:30 p.m., her superior, so he is Mr. Suresh, he can be another stakeholder, calls her and asks her to prepare detailed note on an important matter to be discussed in a meeting in the ministry. So he is allocating some kind of work to her at 9 p.m. She realizes that she will have to work on Sunday to finish the additional task given by her superior. Okay, Sunday she have to work on the holiday also if she has to complete the work. She reflects on how she had looked forward to this posting and had worked long hours for months to achieve it. She had kept the welfare of the people at most in discharging her duties. So she is a sincere officer. She feels that she has not done enough justice to her family and she has not fulfilled her duties in discharging essential social obligations. So she is so much sincere in her duties, in her job related duties, that she is not able to do justice to her family responsibilities. Even as recently as last month, she had to leave her sick child in nanny's care and she had to work in the office. Like, that is showing the gravity of compromising at the personal level that is happening to her. Now she feels that she must draw a line beyond which her personal life should take precedence over the professional responsibilities. She thinks that there should be a reasonable limit to the work ethics such as punctuality, hard work, dedication to duty, and selfless service. So the whole question is between work-life balance. How much of personal compromises you can make in personal life? On this basis, this question is being made. What are the questions you have to answer? Discuss the ethical issues involved in the case. Briefly describe at least 4 laws that have been enacted by the government with respect to providing a healthy, safe and equitable working environment for women. So this is quite interesting question. The idea is you can cite in any laws that comes to your mind. Recently, labor code is in news. In 2019, we have passed the labor code. There is provisions of working for women at late night shifts. There is provisions of having equality in wages for women. So wages code you can write, or maternity benefit act that has been passed in 2017, that you can come into picture. Then the famous Posh Act and the Vishaka guidelines, all these act can also be brought into other acts like Factories Act or Equal Remuneration Act. All these acts you can cite. Any of the 4 acts you can remember, you can cite in the question answer. Imagine you are in a similar situation. What suggestion would you make to mitigate such working condition? So what are the solution, what are the steps to solution you take? You have to write on that regard also. So how you are going to attempt it? Introduction. Again, we are going to have a simple introduction. The case presents Rashika, a joint secretary, confronting ethical dilemmas tied to her work-life balance and ensuring repercussions on her personal and professional responsibilities. So conflict between personal and professional responsibilities, that is the major construct or the major crux of these case studies. So the first come ethical issues. So how you can generate points on ethical issues? Before going into your answer, brainstorm yourself. How you are going to generate different ethical issues in this answer? Different levels. At one straightforward approach is, we had a situation, employee in the government office, she is facing an issue between her personal and work life conflict. So when you think about writing ethical issues, think at different levels. Think at personal level, what is the ethical issues she is facing? Think at superior or the level of manager or the organizational level or the management level, what is the issues? As an organization, public organization, what are the issues associated? Think on these 3 different levels, you can easily generate 5 to 6 ethical issues. What we have generated, professional versus personal commitment. That is a major conflict that is faced by the employee. Welfare of employees versus organizational needs. Similarly, work-life balance issues, duties to the family, self-reflection and self-care, setting boundaries, social responsibility and service. Think from manager level, what are some of the ethical issues from the manager level? Maybe he don't have enough resources, that's why he has to allocate stretch the working time of the employees. Maybe this is not a usual contact. If this is a usual contact, there may be some systematic bias within the organization. So address this bias within the organization. Is this a regular practice, or if woman is in the picture, is it only applicable to women, or the male employees of the organization are also conducted to similar practices? So bring different aspects, different issues at different levels. Don't limit yourself to the work-life balance conflict of this woman or the employee Rashika. Think beyond that. What are the organizational issues of this? What are the managerial issues of this? What are the gender aspects of this? Every aspect you try to bring out some of the points that will comprehensively address the ethical issues dimension. Let's go to the next dimension. At least 4 laws, this I already discussed. You can speak about Vishaka guidelines, Posh Act, you can speak about Maternity Benefit Act 2017. Too much of details, it is not a GS paper. So don't get carried away that you have to remember all these, you have to remember provisions of all these, nothing is required. If you can at least remember the names of the act, think the ethical basis of this, what this per ethical basis of Maternity Benefit Act. It is giving 26 week. If you cannot remember 26 week leave for pregnant woman or for delivery, write about the ethical dimensions, which values of equality, values of child care. So it is for appreciating these values, this law has been passed. So on that ethical values terms, you can give the explanation for all these laws. Equal Remuneration Act 1976, Factories Act, Code on Wages 2019, all these labor code, all these you can bring into your answers. Going ahead, the third part of the question, imagine you are in a similar situation. What suggestions would you make to mitigate such working conditions? That means what are the solutions to this situation? So whenever you have solution, what you have to think on two aspects. In future other questions also, in GS section A also, you will have so many questions where you have to give certain suggestions to some kind of complex issues. What should come to your mind first? Think on short term and long term basis. In short term basis, we have a situation where employee is being subjected to a cycle of imbalance in work life situation. So what is the short term steps you can take so that the problem of the employee in hand is being resolved? On the other hand, what are the long term steps from an organizational perspective, from a manager perspective? What are the steps when the work changes in the work culture you can bring so that the core issues of why this XYZ situation has arisen that can be addressed? Think like short term measures, long term measures. That is one approach. Then at employee level, what you can do? You can bring in different technological measures. Like today you have these work from home facilities. If overtime work is done, you have the provision of adopting work from home or some other technical means so that the workflow can become more smoother. At management level, what measures you can do? At grievance redressal, if an employee is facing such an issue situation, the first and foremost thing is there should be some platform for he or she to come up and register her grievances. Is grievance redressal mechanism working in the organization? All these long term and short term suggestions should have reflection in your papers. Some of the points include clear communication with superiors, that means short term issues, flexibility in working hours, delegation and team collaboration, set clear boundaries, time management and prioritization, advocate for mental health, seek organizational support, continuous training and skill development, seek feedback mechanism, establish a support system. All these are different elements that incorporates whatever we have discussed. So I hope you got a fair idea. So in conclusion, addressing work-life balance issues proactively and collaboratively and seeking both personal and organizational solutions can help in creating healthier and more sustainable working environment. That means you stress on the importance of having a healthy work-life balance, whether it is in public sector or private sector or any other XYZ organization. On that note, let's move further, go through the 10th question, then we will continue the discussion. You're going. Okay. Yeah, I hope you have gone through the case study. Let's read the case once. Vinod is an honest and sincere IAS officer. So we are speaking about an IAS officer in this case. Recently, he has taken over as managing director of State Road Transport Corporation. His sixth transfer in the past 3 years. His peers acknowledge his vast knowledge affability and uprightness. The chairman of State Road Transport Corporation is a powerful politician and is very close to the chief minister. So he has political ties, chairman of the State Road Transport Corporation. Vinod comes to know how about many alleged irregularities of the corporation and high-handedness of the chairman in financial matters. A board member of the corporation belonging to the opposition party meets Vinod and hands over a few documents along with a video recording in which chairman appears to be demanding bribe for placing a huge order for the supply of QMR tiles. So some alleged irregularities is going on. Vinod recollects the chairman expediting clearing of pending bills of QMR tiles. So there are some issues associated with QMR tiles or deal going on with QMR tiles, and this is in interest of the XYZ corporation. So Vinod recollects the chairman expediting clearing bills. Vinod confronts the board member as to why he is shying away from exposing the chairman with a so-called solid proof he has. So there are some allegations, or you have a board member coming with a proof. The member informs him that the chairman refuses to yield to his threats. He adds that Vinod may earn recognition and public support if he himself exposes the chairman. Further, he tells Vinod that once his party comes to power, Vinod's professional growth would be ensured. So there is some political conflict also going on in between. Vinod is aware that he may be penalized if he exposes the chairman and may further be transferred to a distant place. He knows that the opposition party stands a better chance of coming to power in the forthcoming elections. However, he has also realizes that the board member is trying to use him for his political gains. So there is a political battle that is happening. There are 2-3 major issues within this construct. That is political battle between two parties. That is one part of it. The second part, we have the bureaucrat is having a conflict or issues with the politician side of it, and the politician himself is indulging in some part of corruption. So all these different social elements are coming together in this case. As conscientious civil servant, evaluate the options available to Vinod. In the light of the above case, comment upon the ethical issues that may arise due to politicization of bureaucracy. So that is a question you have. 2 questions you have to answer. As a conscientious civil servant, evaluate the options available to Vinod. So as introduction, what you can come up with? The case of Vinod, an upright IAS officer, presents a vivid depiction of the dilemma faced by bureaucrats in politically charged environment, highlighting the intersection of morality, duty, and personal consequences. So what the whole construct of conflict we have here is, that is conflict between keeping up with the duties of a civil servant and where the politician is involved in some kind of an alleged corrupt act practices. First part of the case, that is evaluate option available to the Vinod. Again, I'm not going to too much discuss on the pros and cons of the different options. Whenever you have to generate options, keep in mind at least generate 4 options. Keep 2-3 points here. Then in generating different options, show your practical problem solving skills. This much is what is the requirement from your side. Expose the chairman publicly with the evidence of provided by the board member. That means the first step you can take is completely expose the member. Report the issue and evidence to a higher authority. Wherever you are speaking about reporting the issue or whistleblowing the case, whenever you are speaking about whistleblowing the case, you think of 2 aspects. That is internal whistleblowing as well as external whistleblowing. It is not shown here. You can think on this aspect. Internal whistleblowing, you are reporting to some certain authority within the organization. External whistleblowing, you are reporting to media or you are reporting to outside agencies. Similarly, stay silent and not act on the evidence provided by the board member. That means this employee is already, Vinod is already being transferred 6 times in 3 years. So in this construct, it doesn't make sense to again enforce XYZ things. Confront the chairman privately, urging him to rectify the irregularities and take corrective measures. So that means confront the chairman directly. That is also another option. So in generating different options, I'm only take is try to show your practical problem solving skills. Here you can be innovative, and innovation when it comes, if you are prepared with the basic dimensions of the case studies. So comment upon ethical issues that might arise on politicization of bureaucracy. So we have already discussed this in workshops also. Whenever there is a question on bureaucracy, whenever there is a question on values of civil servant or the conduct of civil servant, what is the ethical framework, set piece ethical framework you can use? Think on these dimensions. What are these dimensions? Think on dimensions of what a civil servant does. Think on dimensions of what a bureaucracy, what are the core functions of a bureaucracy. For example, rule of law. At policy level, you can think on different dimensions like policy formulation, policy implementation, or advisory role to the civil servants, or advisory role to the politicians. All these are different dimensions or responsibilities of civil servant bureaucracy at a policy level. Then you can think on people management public, or you can think of different other aspects like higher authorities or politician management or people management colleagues within the work culture, if conflict, if unions are there, how to manage these kind of people. So resource management, how funds has to be allocated, where the priority of allocation of funds has to be given, organizational culture. So in all these aspects, you think if there is interference by the politicians, what are the different issues? And you relate it with the arguments given in the XYZ case, you can easily generate 6-7 points easily. So these are some of the points we have generated. Conflict of interest between the interest of a civil servant and interest of the, that is the organizational interest or the chairman's interest. Compromised integrity, loss of public trust, professional repercussions, stifling of dissent if the case is not brought forward, like especially when the member already conveyed that the chairman doesn't listen to his threats. So despite having proof that the question of corruption is being sidelined, manipulation for political gains, erosion of meritocracy, short-term focus, impartiality, loss of autonomy, all these different dimensions you can connect with various aspects and you can generate points. So these only two questions are there. Moving forward, in conclusion, you can conclude with the ethical landscape of bureaucracy is complex when intertwined with politics. It is imperative for conscientious civil servants to navigate this terrain with integrity, ensuring that public interest remains paramount over political gains. So you are speaking about cleansing, the need for steps that can be taken for cleansing the civil servant. You can conclude on that note also, to how to check the political interference, how to report different corruption, systemic corruption that is happening within different public organizations. All these elements you can bring into picture and write a conclusion here. Going forward, this is the second last question we have for today. So go through the question once, then we will continue our discussion. Yeah, I hope you have gone through the question. Let's read the question. You have just been appointed as Additional District General of Central Public Works Department. The chief architect of your division, who is to retire in 6 months, is passionately working on a very important project, the successful completion of which would earn him a lasting reputation for the rest of his life. So one major project is going on. What is you? Your role is Additional Director General of Central Public Works Department. Chief architect is going to retire and he has to get the publicity, or you can say the promotion, after the completion of the important project that is going on. A new lady architect, Seema, trained at Manchester School of Architecture, UK, joined as senior architect in your division. During the briefing about the project, Seema made some suggestions which would not only add value to the project but also reduce the completion time. So he made some of very good suggestions when briefing of the project. This has made the chief architect insecure and he is constantly worried that all credit will go to her. Subsequently, he adopted a passive and aggressive behavior towards her and has become disrespectful to her. So there is some professional and conflict going on between the chief architect and the new joinee. And the chief architect is seemingly at a wrong end. Seema felt it embarrassing as the chief architect left no chance of humiliating her. He would very often correct her in front of her other colleagues and raise his voice while speaking to her. This continuous harassment has resulted in her losing confidence and self-esteem. She felt perpetually tensed, anxious, and stressed. She appeared to be in awe of him since he has had a long tenure in the office and has vast experience in the area of her work. She respects him, but he is in a position of insecurity. That's why he is misbehaving with the new joinee. You are aware of her outstanding academic credentials and career record in her previous organizations. However, you fear that his harassment may result in compromising her much needed contribution to this important project and may adversely impact her emotional well-being. You also come to know from her peers that she is contemplating tendering her resignation. So this is a conflict, this is a case of professional jealousy between two different employees in an organization. One is a chief architect and another one is a new joinee. It is mainly regarded to the completion of a project and the conduct as the case is being situated. It indicates that the new joinee is being unbiased or injustice treatment is being imparted to her. And at the worst case, it can also impact the timely completion or quality completion of this project. What are the ethical issues involved in the case? What are the options available to you? Here you is Additional Director General of Central Public Works Department. What are the options available to you in order to complete the project as well as to retain Seema in the organization? What would be your response to Seema's predicament? What measures would you institute to prevent such occurrences from happening in your organizations? So these are three questions you need to handle. Introduction, again we will go with a simple introduction that at least addresses the basic issue in the case. In any professional setting, it is imperative to ensure a conducive environment that promotes collaboration, value input, and guarantees the well-being of employees. This case outlines the ethical challenges and subsequent actions required when faced with professional jealousy, harassment, and potential talent loss within the organization. So here also, when you think from the issue, what are the issues at hand? Don't think from the issues only with the new joinee. New joinee is facing injustice at her level. While there is an organizational issue of losing the talent, while there is a managerial issue in the conduct of the chief architect, is he going to resign in the 6 months? Is this been his continuous practice over the years? Or is this a one-time incident? So there are a lot of organizational issues within this. Keep your perspective wider when trying to answer these kind of questions. Let's move ahead. It's not working. So first part of the question, what are the ethical issues involved? So as I told now, keep your eyes open. Ethical issues is with SEMA, ethical issues is with chief architect also. Ethical issues is with incompletion of this particular project also. While this is also can be a reflection of ethical issues associated with, that is a broader organizational issue that is existing within the organization. Chief architect, that means it is at highest level. If highest level this is the context, then it can have multiple repercussions at the other levels of the organizations, whether it is a part of organizational culture, whether it is a one-time XYZ incident that has to be dealt with. All these elements should reflect when you write about ethical issues. Professional jealousy and harassment, these are some of the listings. Professional jealousy and harassment, abuse of power and seniority, loss of talent, compromising project quality, emotional well-being, transparency and openness, gender dynamics, role of leadership. These are different aspects of ethical issues you can bring out in this XYZ question. Now, what are the options available to you to complete the project as well as retain SEMA in the organization? Here I told you, whenever options available, here evaluation is not being asked. Only asked is options. So you don't need to go to pros and cons, or you don't need to develop diverge options. You can take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps you can adopt in this case. Immediate measures, what you can take: organizational support, providing some sort of organizational support to SEMA so that she don't tender her resignation. Similarly, mediation and conflict resolution, they redefine roles and responsibilities. For example, you can consider shifting SEMA to some other department or some other project so that the conflict between the chief architect and SEMA is not getting exaggerated into higher levels. Similarly, training and sensitization, some long-term solutions like training and sensitization workshops, feedback mechanism, open communication, conduct of open communication within the organization, etc. Similarly, response to third part of the question, that is response to SEMA's predicament. You can think from certain values, immediate response. You can think from empathy, compassion, work professionalism, timely quality of the delivery, address chief architect's concerns, look for professional counseling. All these things can come into your response system. Similarly, measures to prevent such occurrences, but what will be long-term measures you can take? Anti-harassment policies, implementing anti-harassment policies in the organization, sensitization workshops, open communication channels, performance evaluations, conflict resolution, mentorship programs, team building measures. That means work culture, how to improve work culture so that this kind of professional jealousy and other conflicts doesn't come into picture. So this has been highlighted in the, this you can long-term measures what you take can highlight in the third part of your answer. On that note, you can conclude the answer. Addressing interpersonal conflicts and ensuring respect for all, irrespective of seniority or gender, is fundamental for organizational success. Implementing the suggested measure not only remedies the immediate situation, but also lays a robust foundation for harmonious future workplace. On this note, you can conclude the answer. So this is the last question for the day. Go through the question once, then we will continue the discussion. Yeah, so let's go through the question. You hold a responsible position in a ministry in the government. One day in morning, you receive a call from school, from the school of your 11-year-old son, that you are required to come and meet the principal. You proceeded to the school and find your son is in the principal's office. Principal informs you that your son has been found wandering aimlessly in the grounds during the time classes were in progress. The class teacher further informs you that your son has lately become a loner and did not respond to the questions in the class. He had also been unable to perform well in the football trials held recently. You bring your son back from your school, and in the evening you, along with your wife, try to find out the reason for your son's changed behavior. After repeated cajoling, your son shares some children had been making fun of him in the class as well as in the WhatsApp group of students by calling him stunted dog and frog. He tells you that the names of few children who are in the main culprits and pleaded with you to let the matter rest. After a few days, during a sporting event where you and your wife have gone to watch your son play, one of your colleagues' son shows you a video in which students have caricatured your son. Further, he also points out to the perpetrators who were sitting in the stands. You purposefully walk past them with your son and go home. Next day, you find on social media a video denigrating you and your son and even your wife, stating that you engaged in physical bullying of children on the sports field. The video became viral on social media. Your friends and colleagues began calling you to find out the details. One of your juniors advised you to make a counter video giving the background and explaining that nothing had happened on the field. You in turn posted a video which you have captured during the sport event identifying the likely perpetrators who were responsible for your son's predicament. You have also narrated what has actually happened in the field and made attempts to bring out the adverse effects of the misuse of social media. Based on the above case study, discuss the ethical issues involved in the use of social media. Discuss the pros and cons of using social media by you to put across the facts to counter the fake propaganda against your family. So mostly it is a question of bullying in the school along with social media coming into picture. And the questions you have to answer is mostly related to ethical issues of you involved in use of social media, pros and cons of social media by you if you use it to put across your arguments on this. Advent of social media has brought with it numerous benefits and challenges that you have to take a balanced stance on social media. The case study highlights the complexities faced by the individual when personal issues get intertwined with wider digital public. Now, what are the ethical issues? You can think on different dimensions. You can think from GS perspective. You can think from different stakeholders using social media. It is not just an ethical issue. It's not just associated with the who is being victimized. Ethical issues is associated with social media being used by the other person also. Points include cyberbullying, the issue of major issue crux of the case studies, cyberbullying itself. Spread of false information, fake news, right to privacy, violation of right to privacy, mob mentality, reactive behavior, lack of accountability, digital footprint, impartiality and abusive power. Digital footprint means once you have taken some certain step, it is very difficult to negate it. That means you cannot delete it from the website. It becomes viral, it keeps on spreading across the different platforms, it keeps on coming back. Emotional well-being of child is being affected, peer pressure and group thinking, all these reflections of all these issues you can find in the usage of social media in the present times. Similarly, the pros and cons of using social media to protect across fact to counter the fake propaganda. What are the advantages? There can be option for direct communication, there can be broad reach if the video became viral, there can be transparency, control over narrative, there can be immediate response, there can be evidence sharing, you can bring out different proofs, different videos to in support of you, you can engage with supporters, you can clarify the misunderstanding. All these are different elements in engaging, benefits of directly engaging with the social media and clearing whatever is the situation. But this is not an end in itself. It has a huge number of limitations also. Even if you make a put of video, in many times what we see is, if something video speaking of bad of something, it becomes viral. It goes on spread like a wildfire. Everyone sees this. Now the counter to this, or when a fact analysis is done on the XYZ matter, that is not becoming viral and nobody interested to watch this. So only one side of the story get highlighted within the social media. Associated, there are n number of issues, can escalate the conflict. Sometimes the issue may end here, but giving undue more importance to the issue is may counterfire the well-being of the children as well as the family. Misinterpretation, your message can be twisted. Many times we see the statements from different politicians being cut and made used in some other circumstances. Permanent footprint, it will leave a permanent footprint within the social media. Backlash risk, public might not side with you. Public might, if you, especially if you are from a position of power, especially if you are from some kind of a person who doesn't garner the public support, then there is always a risk of backlash. Emotional responses like hate messages, you get on certain responses to social media. Privacy concerns always may reveal the details, your details as well as the child's detail in the public. This can cause another set of grievances. Now it is always a time consuming process managing the comments, managing the narrative in the social media. Fuel fake news, maybe somebody else can also make his own narrative, his own adaptations in this case, and that can be used against you. So these are different elements of pros cons of using social media to clarify the construct. In conclusion, you can say, while social media can serve as a tool for transparency and direct communication, it also has the potential to amplify misunderstanding and perpetuate misinformation. It's crucial to approach such platform with caution, understanding both their advantages and pitfalls. On that note, we are concluding the answer. So the whole crux of discussion, we have completed the discussion of all questions from 2023 mains. In today's class, the major takeaway is only one thing: how you should generate, how you should approach case studies to maximize your advantage. Case studies are not something that is a challenge in itself. The only challenge comes to if you mismanage the time, if you mismanage in reading the case studies, if you overread the case studies, if you override the certain dimensions of the case studies. These elements you have to practice, you have to have a familiarity with this. Now, innovative and standout case study, if you want to score exceptionally high marks, prepare different themes. If you want pre-made themes, you go into the ethics MIB booklet where you can get the different themes of the XYZ. Otherwise, make your own themes of case studies that is being repeatedly asked in the paper based on last 10 to 11 years paper. Then make innovative solutions for this, innovative ethical arguments for this, best solution for this. Then go to the paper, then you can at least incorporate 2-3 points from there that will make your answer stand out. So this should be your overall approach towards case studies. On that note, we will wind up the class. Again, the 3 ethics programs that is to be launched, you can go through this. And that's all for the time being. Thank you so much.